another sunny day in Southern California. It's where the people came to play. Don't let them transform you. Oh, come and see what you've been missing on a little slice of heaven. It's the only place we're living. It's that West Coast point of view. Easy when it's always summertime fun. You and I get free attitude. Who cares what the people think? It's been turning kinda gray in Southern California, but I'm allergic to the rain. What happened to euphoria? Oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about a damn thing. I'm too excited, dark liquor with the palm trees. It's all or nothing, ooh, it's all or nothing. Ignore the signs and socialize. Come and see what you've been missing on a little slice of heaven. It's the only place we're living. It's that West Coast point of view. Easy when it's always summertime fun. You and I get free attitude. Who cares what the people think? 'Cause it's that West Coast point of view.
All right, all right. We are back. Let's see
All right. What's up, DP?
what is going on. We are back and live. A little bit of a technical difficulty, so I'll let Brian introduce himself first. Try to update the details on where you are watching us, but we drive on nonetheless. So
Yeah,
we put
absolutely.
a different title on it, different things. We'll push, so it's fine.
We push on. Hey, it's nothing's fatal here. So, yeah. So, hey, guys, good to see everybody popping into the chat. Brian Lofton, disabled Army vet and member of Veterans Network. Glad to be here with you guys and with DP, of course. Um, we've had some pretty exciting week, particularly this week. It's been
And
pretty.
indeed, it has been. If you're watching us, where you're watching us now, I'm gonna go ahead and put down the link to our YouTube stream because for some reason Facebook is acting kind of funny. So I'm gonna add that link so you can hop on over. So if you're watching us on Facebook or you're watching us on any other platform, you'll be able to jump over to Facebook and have a better interaction there. So sometimes Facebook tends to change how they're doing things. So if you're on the Veterans Network page, you'll see the updated change. So we've pinned that live right now to the top, and you'll be able to actually click on that. Let's see. Outside of that, DP, Disabled Army Veteran, founder of Veterans Network Champions Club. It's Friday, doing a check-in, just kind of touching base, talking a little bit about everything. You may notice that we are missing our center face here in our show that's usually with us. She's out today, but watching. So Amy is going to be kind of as a we probably put a picture up or something, so at least it looks like we have like a stand-in of sorts.
Can you just put like a microphone that's
Yeah,
like
like a little
standing up?
like a little microphone, and that might just probably be able to do it there. So yeah, so we are kind of touching a little bit of everything. No specific topic today per se. Really just kind of touching base. So if you're watching us live, let us know the branch of service you served, time that you were in. If you're watching the replay, same thing as well. So we can have a conversation with you all. So we are currently live in Facebook, in YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. So we are glad that you all are here spending some time with us. So, to the crazy week, how's your week been?
Hey, it's been there's a lot of activity going on. We've been, of course, helping a lot of veterans, and that's always good with their benefits. Uh, been diving heavily into the NFTs. That's been quite a whirlwind of activity, as always. I guess it's just a frenetic environment. So
Yeah, we've had it's interesting foray into a few different things that we're doing. So we definitely want to answer some of that, talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit about the some things that we're creating that's on the way. So we have some ebooks, we have some things that we're putting together. So we want to kind of share and tease some of that out as well. So to the topic again, just kind of checking in. So we're talking a little bit of claims, benefits for veterans. We're talking some NFTs as well, and just a little bit of all that's pertinent to our demographic. So pretty cool, pretty exciting. Um, let's see, we got some comments here. So let's see, we got regular veteran here hanging out, saying howdy do.
all
What's
right,
going on, my brother? Let's see. Uh, Nathan actually says he's currently at the airport shooting some footage for a project trailer. So good luck with that. That's awesome.
that's
We
cool.
got Rick in the house coming at us from Murfreesboro. I can't even say that three times real fast.
Murfreesboro, yeah, that's
Murfreesboro.
I've
Yeah.
been to Murfreesboro, and that's kind of out in the middle of really nowhere. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful country, but
I was gonna. I jacked that whole thing up. Let's see. Nathan's coming at us from Raleigh, North Carolina. We got Austin in the house, Kylie in Texas, U.S. Navy, tired 78 to 98. Thanks for tuning in.
nice.
Let's see. Regular vet coming at us from Portland, Oregon, Air Force 06213. Austin says, please explain NFTs. We shall do a quick review for sure. Let's see. I was in McCord. C141s from 9602, says Nathan. Awesome. Pretty cool. So, yeah. Let me just update here one thing. So, let's kind of work backwards. So, we have a few things that we're working on specifically. Can you talk a little bit about maybe an ebook that we might be updating?
Yes, this is going to be a good one. So, like DP said, we're always working on developing some new content to help the veteran community out there. And one of the ebooks that we're working on right now is going to be about presumptive conditions and presumptive claims for disability claims. So that's going to be pretty good little book.
Oh, there she is.
Hey, there's Amy. Uh, we miss you, Amy, but we're glad that you're here in the chat. So, but yeah, so presumptive conditions. This is something that, of course, gives an opportunity for certain conditions to have a lower threshold for consideration for service connection. So there's a lot of information that can be shared behind that, and we think that that ebook will be well received. It'll be very useful.
I
Yeah.
think so. There you go.
There you go.
That
There's
we got a little microphone there for Amy as well, so that'll work. So I think it's cool. Like I said, we have because of course we operate in a digital space, so people always see things, But here's like a size of the state benefit book that we have, so it's quite you know
that
quite
is quite
extensive. Yeah,
robust,
and we're
and
going to be
that's
updating and adding some stuff. So shout out to Ronis actually who helped out with getting some of the cool, you know, printing on this stuff. So we're updating this for the year as well. So our state benefit ebook, that's something that we're going to be releasing along with the presumptives and just different things that I think are pertinent to veterans to be able to at least access and have some resources available to them. So the stuff that we'd like to see and read, I guess, be the best way to look at it for sure.
yeah, well, absolutely. Well, of course, we all slowed down for the holidays and the beginning and end of the year type of reset, if you will. So now that the new year started, we're kind of building up the momentum, and those ebooks are going to be exciting when we are able to share those with everybody else. And I know that state benefits book has been extremely popular.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, we've
great.
had a lot of downloads, and folks that have definitely shown up and found good use of it. So I think we've updated all the areas. So wherever you are watching us, this should be a YouTube link for you to be able to actually come on over should you choose to do so, for sure. Let's see. Rick did say exactly where he wants to be, middle of nowhere, known for creator
That's,
of Diamond States Park.
that's right. I've been to that diamond park. So basically, when you go out there, it looks like just acres and acres of tilled dirt. And so basically, you go out there and you start digging through the dirt and trying to sift through and find diamonds, and people find diamonds out there. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, they do exist. It's just hard to find. I didn't find anything but dirt and mud. So
There
um,
you go. We got a better one.
there we go. And that one matches Amy's
See, there you go, and
microphone.
you got like the same microphone and everything. So see, we found a way to work through that their situation.
That'll
So
teach Amy for not being here.
exactly, like there you go. So we just have a standing right there. So from time to time, we'll kind of just bring the cat in here and there. But the microphone is it's pretty much the same microphone too, which is funny.
It looks exactly the same.
Uh, yeah. Um, so we got the ebook, yeah, for sure. So for those that don't, like I said, we'll post these links. Amy did say matches my mic perfectly. Um, yeah, yeah. So but please do keep Amy in your thoughts. She is currently dealing with some. Uh, I don't even know how to say it, but I think it's more like when we come of age, we start to get a little bit fragile, and we can end up hurting ourselves in the funniest of ways. So there'll be a funny story coming from that. But when in doubt, use a child as your cushion. Do
They
not spare the
recuperate a
child.
lot faster than we do. So
Yep, yep, yep. But she's good. She's just recovering from a spill, so she'll be back in the mix soon enough. So that's why we have the cat stand in here, pretty much giving a rendition. And you can't hear it, but they're probably singing too. So there's that part. Um, but yeah, some of these services, some of the things that we have at veteransnetwork.club, if you haven't checked out our website, we always encourage you all to go and check that out, because that's where you'll be able to get a lot of information that we have, things that we're releasing. So there's some updates coming, partnerships that are on the way as well, different devices that we're testing. So there's a lot of amazing, crazy things that we have in the works that they don't seem like a lot till you start talking about it. And then it's just like, wait a second, there is a whole lot of stuff going on. So the biggest thing, and actually we'll take a jump over there, is by trying to create the different things that we are doing. Basically, it's just trying to add more value, right? So when we come down to our website, we encourage you to kind of check out the different resources and things that we have here available. And the reason reason I say that is because we're adding more things. So it's going to be a revamp, but we do have resources available. Folks are always reaching out in some shape, fashion, or form. So these are individuals that have reached out, from Medicare plans to resume builders to vet gigs to asbesto.com. Like, it's just so many folks, and there's a whole bunch of other things that we're working through to be able to update as well. So head on over to veteransnetwork.club if you have a service that you'd like to provide, to be able to kind of put that on a resource page. That'll be there. We're going to have another section with some trusted medical professionals that we network with as well. So that'll be something that we are going to have there. Our blog section, we always say, we had Dr. Hunter here with us the other day, sharing some of her knowledge and information. So a lot of great blogs and information that we're doing on different aspects. So definitely go ahead and check some of those things out post shows. Our swag shop, we always kind of, don't talk about it too much, but we have our swag shop as well with our different types of merchandise that are being created. So I think it's pretty cool that we also have that. So I'll explain a little bit about the why of, why we're doing things the way we're doing it as well, so folks can kind of understand that. So one of the biggest things here is the different services that we do have, right? So a lot of the things that you see, the lives that we do, there's 3 different areas. I would say that we really focus on, and it's benefit support, it's smart software trading, and it's also veteran business development. And I'm actually looking at changing the middle one to more of a technology education, and execution type of realm, because it really goes more than that. So on the benefit side, there's a variety of benefits veterans are just not aware of. When it comes to the middle bracket, right, it's really leveraging the fact that we understand technology and are in different things. So there are trading software systems, NFTs, crypto, things like that. So that's that middle bracket there that I would probably look at, like tech education, future efforts and things like that, and then veteran business development. So all that to say that part of the reason of why we're doing things the way we're doing it is because for most veterans, right, you may go someplace and find some support. And I'm breaking it down because you'll see on our swag shop, there's a part there that talks about 5%. So when it comes to our businesses themselves, everything that we do, any service that we provide, whether it be veteran support and benefits side of the house, whether it's business development, consulting, coaching, speaking engagement, so forth, or working in collaboration with other projects and processes and things, 5% of all that goes to veteran nonprofit organizations. So being a business, there's a lot of philanthropic things that we do, and there's also the part of us giving back. So in my mind, the way I always see this is saying, if you're going to do business with us in any shape, fashion, or form, whether it's for this service, this subscription, that course we may create, or all the other lines of businesses that we have that helps us to create jobs for other veterans and do certain things like that. 5% of all of that will be donated in our clients' names to the charity of their choice, or two that we have identified. So we have 2 veteran nonprofits that we partnered with, and then if the veteran says, for example, I support this specific one, then in turn we'll go ahead and support that cause as well. And for me, it's one of those, I don't want to just say, oh, business is good, so let's go ahead and do something. Like, no, regardless of a business being good or bad, our thought process of what we want to do doesn't change, right? So we keep that as part of our ethos. So when we start looking at what this means to me, right, going back again to, for example, the website, and I think it's just good to explain it, you'll see that interlace across the way, right? 5% of all sales benefits go to veteran causes and so forth. And that's really down to what our mission statement is, which we haven't really talked too much about, right? Because we come pop up, we talk about different things, but no matter what we're doing, everything centers around this. This is why I founded Veterans Network, Champions Club, because it's really, for me, about championing veterans' growth, development, and success. And it doesn't matter if you're a young veteran or older veteran, he just got out of service, you've been out of service, growth doesn't stop, right? Growth doesn't stop because you've left service. Development doesn't stop, success doesn't stop. So I look at it as a way of saying that for many veterans, sadly, and Brian, you can chime in on this too, we always talk about our best days are behind us, right? The best things, the best times we had were behind us. And I think that's inaccurate. I think that's just, sadly, our reality to a degree. But the fact is we have the ability to do different things. So when a question comes up about, NFTs or crypto or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's whatever is new and latest and trending. And we're in the front edge of that. We want to be able to bring that conversation to the veteran space. So what that means is that if this was 1999, then I'd be talking about this crazy concept called internet. And I'd be talking about it over and over and over again. So, whatever those new developments are, we want to talk about them, and we want to be able to share so that it's not a fact that you don't know, but rather you're informed and you can make decisions. So nothing ever construes medical advice or financial advice or legal advice, but if we have the ability to find a medical provider to put you in contact with to help you in your claims process, we're going to do so. That's why we brought Dr. Hunter. We brought Damon to speak about financial matters. We're going to bring a variety of different folks from different aspects. If you're following our channel, you may see there's going to be a variety of different things happening. And really, it's more saying that I get that a lot of YouTube and social media marketing things will say, niche down and stay in one lane and do this stuff. Okay, that's fine. I'm not here to get a million likes or followers or stuff like that. It's about serving and helping, and this is an extension of our business that happens day to day. So on this channel, you'll see on Friday Night Lives, we talk about claims, right? We talk about different topics and we'll identify that. And then you'll see us during the daytime, we'll start going live and talking about NFTs. And we'll bring projects in. So if you look at the channel, you'll see us bringing in creators who are doing it. You'll start seeing some veterans from our audience who are, excuse me, stepping up to create their own projects as well, and we're supporting them. So this all goes into the business development side of the house, right? So we talked about benefits, we talked about technology in the future and so forth, and business dev. Well, business dev and some technology kind of merges together, and that comes into NFTs because we do have some veterans who are beginning the process of creating, right, projects and kind of going into that space. So we want to be able to support, help, and leverage the relationships that we do have. So that's why you see that that's the conversation. So I want to be clear for those that maybe may not agree with this, in the sense of not your thing, which is fine. What I want to make sure that we're clear on is that it's not because now NFTs are trendy we're talking about it. I've been into NFTs since last year. I've been into crypto since 2017. So this is nothing new. It's just more saying if our community is asking for something, then we're going to respond and provide that information, right? Versus let's do something that people are kind of clicking on. That's not the play because, again, I think some people do those things, right? They'll ride trends to get attention. Whereas in my case, I'm an active investor in many things, to include cryptocurrencies and NFTs and projects and so forth, and consult and do different things there. So because of that, we want to share that. Right. So I think it's just good to frame set that it's not that we're, pivoting. It's just that we're adding different lines. So you may see a point where, the channel may grow or it may spin off into a sub channel, creating different things depending on what, folks look into. But it's just all to provide. So everything is always done from a point of view for veterans and then civilians as well. So that's just one thing I think it's just good to be able to talk about as to the why. So in my mind, I see Veterans Network as a place where you may have met us through NFTs, but while you're here, if you need support in other areas or want to start a business, we have support for that. We have entrepreneurship, tendencies and practices and a proven track record of starting businesses, right? So when you talk NFTs, we can talk that. If we're talking businesses, we can talk about the fact that we have started businesses successfully. We've had successful exits, and we've been able to scale up from one-man operations to 30-plus man operations, so forth, personnel. So we can look at those things, right? So there's an aspect of consulting and coaching and education that comes with that. But I think it's just good to talk about that. But again, to me, Veterans Network is just more than one thing, right? Maybe you came and met us because you saw an ad and you were interested in benefits. Well, then now you go ahead and look at some other things that might be of interest to you while you're here. So when it's all said and done, I think that it's about creating more than one thing, not a one-trick pony, right? If it's a community, if it's a club, if it's a network, there should be more things that are a part of that. Brian, some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's an important part, important factor to bring up because, quite frankly, as veterans, we tend to be skeptical of people reaching out and offering things to us because many times we've just been scammed or been under whatever service has been offered has been under delivered, or just feel like they're out there for a money grab. And I love that 5% donation back to charity, because that I think that at the heart of it speaks to the fact that our mission is first and foremost to give back, um, and we do that through all of these various avenues that DP has talked about. Because I guarantee you, we had with the claim support, with the business development, and with the technology, education, and other aspects. Uh, it's not like we've charged for everything that we've always done, as well. So we've offered a lot of free service as well, on top of the 5% back as well. And as even today, responding to somebody who reached out to us through our website saying that they are skeptical because they've been promised this and they've been promised that. They feel like they're just basically they're just shy about trusting anybody else. And that's why I like us doing these lives, because let me tell you, this is us. We're not putting on some kind of fake veneer. And so
But I wouldn't be opposed to some veneers. I hear those things are quite
I,
nice.
yeah, I'm still looking for that veneer that,
Yep.
clean it up a little bit. But
It's like that first starting sequence where we're all kind of grayed out. So it's like that's about as real as it gets here. I think one day we should do that. Probably we should just like a whole show in black and white and take it back.
but
See
this is
that
it.
like
So,
this is how we feel right now because Amy's not here. We're
yeah,
kind of gray.
that's right. It's it's like a mood ring, but it's a YouTube ring, or YouTube mood ring. But the reality is that we do tend to look back to the days of our service, because those were the days at which we were our peak physical
Hmm.
condition. Um, we still had all of our joints and body parts moving properly, and um, you
But
know
so pause on that though, right? Because I think that's a good point to kind of really just focus on for a second. One, Derek, thank you for tuning in. Wherever you're watching us, you'll see the YouTube link. So you might see some comments on YouTube, some on Facebook. So YouTube tends to be a little more reliable. We had some tech issues today with Facebook. From time to time, they'll change their settings and it won't click. So like we're live on YouTube, but not Facebook. So you got to start, restart, and all that. But we pushed through nonetheless. Austin said, thank you for being open and honest. And thank you, Nathan, for the services. So we actually do have a variety. We actually have a physical location in Michigan as well with one of our sister companies that does a lot of things. So being able to aggregate other places, other veterans who are able to provide services, really lends itself to the network aspect of it. So, but let's go way back to old live that we did way back when. How long did it take you to file a claim with the VA from when you
oh,
left service?
so I left the service in '93. That's 1993, and I didn't file. I didn't in earnest file a claim until 2019. So it was 26 years. I exited the army with a 10% rating because of a condition I'd already had at the time of my separation. Um, I just left then. That was a 10% rating. That's all I had for 26 years. And it wasn't
Right, and
until
but again, at 26 years, because you'll see this out there, and again, to Austin, to your point, I'm pretty transparent about a lot of things, and one of them is, hey, we'll put ads out there because it's a business and you have to get attention. But the reality is, it was 26 years before you filed a claim. And for many, that's the average, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We've had folks from the Korean War, for crying out loud. And I say that to say that, sadly, right, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, I think the day before yesterday, talk about NFTs. And if you hear the things that we do, what I'm saying is the same thing. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about NFTs or I'm talking about this. It's ultimately, people are skeptical and we're tired of getting screwed. Check. So when there are people who are actually doing things for the right reasons, right, I think that you can successfully have a business. You can be ethical, right? You don't have to be, a complete, snake oil salesman, right, and promising things that are outlandish. I love that comment, Rick. I'm gonna bring it up here in a second. But we've been doing this for the better part of, well, I think I've been doing this for the better part of almost 3 years, probably. For the most part. So if you go back, there's a lot of content in there. And arguably, all the gurus can say there's better ways to do a thing, but it's like, if you really say you're doing it for the people that matter, then that's what matters, not just for metrics and numbers. So I say that to say that there may be ads that may be out there like, oh crap, that's, kind of a shocking ad. Well, it stopped you though, because the fact is, sometimes I make the correlation to say that we want home cooked, wholesome, good food, but we keep going to McDonald's. You want companies that are veteran run, that are doing the right thing, that are serving in different capacities, but we don't patronize them. We don't give them our business. We give our business to the ones that are flashy and noisemakers and have all the, glitz and glams. So, I'm not going to be a caricature, right? I don't want to be a caricature. I want to be a real person that deals with real issues. And as veterans, we deal with issues, right? And I say that to say that, when we're working with clients, I always say, we're going to have grace with you, but we also expect some grace with us, right? So if one of our, staff is not feeling well, guess what? Take the day off. Because, we have our ratings. We deal with our own disabilities, right? We have our musculoskeletal issues. We have depression, anxiety, PTSD. We have migraines and so forth, IBS, all those things. We deal with these things, right? So there's no glam here, right? Where it's just like, hey, camera ready, looking nice. Like, no, this is about as real as it's going to get. And sadly, I'm okay with the fact that being real means that, hey, if I could do something my way, how would it look like, right? And that's what kind of bore, this whole Veterans Network movement of saying, well, let's do it our way, right? What if we led with empathy? What if we led with actually caring and being real, being able to talk about things and be transparent while serving, right? Without having to, resort to things that, for others are quick flips, right? I'm more of a long-term holder. So what I mean by that is that I'll wait the long term. And I know that maybe the way we may go about business may take longer to build. And I'm okay with that. Because if we can pick up one good person along the way, heck, what can we accomplish over a year, over 2, over 3, over 4, over 5, right? And there's obviously challenges and self-doubt and imposter syndrome and all the things that come with that. But I say that to say that what we're trying to convey is that if we are as real as we can be, hopefully we can help somebody else, because we're not any better than anybody else. It took Brian 26 years to come to a place of filing a claim, to be able to trust someone, to be able to be open again, to be able to say, okay, is this something even worth my time? Because the fact is, there's a few things I don't think we realize when it comes to just a claim. Specifically, when it comes to disability claim, the fact is there are many people out there dealing with issues. Whether or not you want to believe it or not, the fact is when you look in the mirror, you may not recognize who you see. And it has nothing to do with wrinkles. It has nothing to do with life. It has to do with the fact that you're not the person you used to be for other reasons. And you're carrying things post-service that may have slowed you down. Now, that could apply to people who have served or not served, right? You've experienced traumatic events. You've been through things. You are dealing with things. But when it comes to the veteran plight, if you are dealing with something post-service, you have the right to file that claim. Because when a medical condition has risen to the level of a disability, that's a different conversation. Now the conversation becomes, yes, I served, but the fact is, maybe you didn't come back from Vietnam, right? The way you went in, right? You came back physically, but some things for sure didn't click, are not clicking how they used to be. And I mean that to say that, you were exposed to things at a time where maybe it was a stimulus of, stress, and different things that may have altered the way you look at the world. That's reality, right? PTSD, you've experienced things, assault, etc. So whatever those things may be, if those medical conditions now have gone on to affect your life and you realize that you just can't hold on a job, you're dealing with issues where you can't hold on relationships, you're dealing with issues where you can't physically do what you used to do, the fact of the matter is now you're dealing with a disability, because a disability is nothing more than a medical condition now that has risen to a level where now it begins to impair you both occupationally and socially. But this is different than Social Security. So when it comes to a VA claim, what you're saying to the VA is saying, hey, I've dealt with these things and these things are affecting me. And because of that, socially and occupationally, I deal with these things. Whether it's migraines or physical, musculoskeletal, or it's psychological in nature, whatever it may be. So being able to file that claim and find someone that's not for once trying to, just ring you down this thing. And again, you have options, right? You can go to the VSO. You can go with an accredited agent. You can do all these things. Options are there. All I am saying is that explore the options, see what's out there. Because the fact is, collectively, I want to say, we've served well over, 3,000-4,000 veterans in the span of 3 or 4 years now, right? And our veterans have won successfully. And again, some things took time and some things, was fast. But it's all about being able to hopefully help someone along the way, because the question at times comes, why reach out to organizations, right? When things are Googleable. Well, you can Google all kinds of stuff. No one is saying you can't. But like the gym, I always make the equation, right? Everybody knows to eat right. Everybody knows to move some weight. But sometimes you just need a support system and cadre to kind of help you through this process, to have an advisor or a coach or a VSO or a accredited attorney, whoever you choose to go with, right? Whether it's us or not. But you choose to have someone in your corner to help you along the way. Because the fact is, okay, well, Billy did it by himself. That's fine. And Jimmy lost 50 pounds by himself. You need a trainer. It's just, what I mean? It's just the way it is. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just saying, hey, if you've tried something that's not working, then reset, right? You've been denied. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't invalidate your condition and what you're dealing with. At times, it's the bureaucracy of what's happening in the system of the VA. So finding organizations that you feel comfortable with, that you feel you can relate to, are key. And that's why we choose to do these things and talk about our lives and what we deal with. So I talk about my service dog, I talk about my conditions, we talk about the things we deal with, to be able to say, hey, if we could do it, you can do it. And then if we can have a conversation to get your, let's say, your benefits in place, that opens up other benefits, i.e. you have the ability to, put in for, buying a house maybe. Or you may look into educational benefits, or you may look into all the other benefits that are available to you where you live. So you have that. Then you have the ability potentially to look into, okay, I got my benefits. Now what do I do? Right? Like life doesn't stop there, right? We've established that you have a condition, things you've dealt with. You've been now recognized to say you're dealing with this condition, you're rated with this condition, and now in turn, what? Right? So now enter, education technology. By that being cryptocurrencies, NFTs, potentially just regular investments, right? We literally brought a accredited investment advisor, my advisor that I have, who handles my portfolio, right? And again, and that's just like most of the people that we bring on here is literally me bringing my doctors here, like, hey, would you have a conversation? It's like, wait, what? Or people I've partnered with before, or people that they have referred. So it's just like I trust these folks because I have done business with them, right? Or I have seen them for care. So I think I had my acupuncturist and internist doctor one time that we brought on and whatnot. But that's what it's about, because a lot of you all don't have access maybe to some of that information or some of those doctors. So if we can have a conversation and have a live with Dr. Hunt like we did a few weeks ago, then that gives you at least the ability to say, okay, I've learned something, now I know what to go ask, right? So even when it comes to our network of other providers who are, trusted and vetted, like I've talked to these doctors, I like what they're doing, they understand what our veterans need, I want to be able to connect those pieces, right? So that's one piece. But now let's look at, potentially looking into maybe those other, systems, investment services, or you want to start a business, right? You got your rating, you don't have to work or do that stuff that you just dreaded doing. And now you can take your skills and your time and develop something. Look at us right now, right? One question is, where are we? I'm in Virginia. Brian's all in Oklahoma. So, what I'm saying? We're not close. My entire organization is virtual. So we literally have a virtual staff spread across the U.S., which I think is cool because we have the ability to work through things. So being an organization pretty much comprised, my entire staff is pretty much comprised of veterans or, military spouses or people who are disabled. So like literally, most organizations would say, we encourage veterans and we want to have, places for folks with disabilities. I'm like, well, I think ours is the opposite, right? Like we have a job announcement, like we'll let in people who have none of these issues, but you're like the 5%. Everybody else is like us, right? But I say that to say, obviously, taking a little bit light, but those are things that I'm passionate about. So I think it's about creating that. So courses, materials, ebooks, videos. There's a lot of different services and things that we're structuring, and we'll see kind of what the market decides. But for veterans, if they have the ability to just get more than one thing, I think that's key, right? Again, you got this one service. Now maybe you start your business. Well, what do you know about business? Have you started a business? Do you know the intricate details of it? Automations, technology, software, admin, all the things that, we've done at scale. We have the ability to be able to consult with that. So I think that's really what it comes down to, where as we grow, you start seeing more folks come through. We've had, as you see our previous shows, we've had realtors, we've had lending agents, we've had medical providers, we've had psychologists, we've had people who work at the VA here. The list goes on, and we're making so many new relationships. So we literally have organizations that are creating things. If you look at what we did yesterday on the show, we had a artist that you can look up, Dave Merrill. He is an artist from London who has done work with ESPN. He does commercial illustrations. So Dave Merrill, Merrell. great work that he does, and he's starting an NFT project, and he's taking that chance as an artist to create something new for himself. So these are the things that we can expose our community to, because again, if you see what we do, I'm always explaining even those things there, because yes, that may attract a new demographic of people to our channel, which is fine, but it's ultimately, creating content that serves. So maybe somebody who is seeing us came through NFTs, but while you're here, let's also talk about mental health. Let's also talk about something that maybe your dad's a veteran or your brother's a veteran. It's like, hey, go check out these guys because, they're doing some pretty interesting things, right? And vice versa, exposing our veterans and military community to something new. And maybe you're not into that stuff, but hey, I'm listening to this guy who's an artist and I've seen his work and that's interesting. And you can just watch from the sidelines. Nobody's saying you have to actively do anything, but at least you have the ability to, be exposed to these different new things, right? So that's what I think it comes down to. I like people having options, and I like the fact that if we have these conversations, we just share them with you all. So I think that's really a big one, but I would be remiss to not say that the foundation of all this is empathy and mental health, especially when it comes to this world. For many of you all, right, we have a lot of folks out there who are not spring chickens. We have an alarming rate of statistics by way of suicide, by way of mental health issues. I would argue that the numbers are skewed and probably not correct given the pandemic. And I say that because we live in a world we're oversaturated with issues, right? Like, gone are the days where I went to school, right, to go bully Brian, and then Brian went home and didn't see me till the next day, right? Yeah, he may have been, crazy, or he may have been rather, scared or whatever because there was some bully at school. But once he went home, he didn't see me, right? Like all that kind of stopped for a little bit. But the world we live in now, it's not the same. Like, cyberbullying means that as long as you have this thing, it doesn't stop, right? So we live in a world where it's like an oversaturation of information, and many of you all have turned off your Facebooks, have turned off your social media, have turned off things. Why? Because it's just nonstop. And we kind of grew up and live a life where I remember a time where I could go to a concert and enjoy it, not see this. I remember times when I could go and do things without seeing this everywhere, where I could talk to someone without, what's that? Oh, you know what I'm saying? So that's the world we live in now. It's always connected. All these things are happening, even our veterans. And the oversaturation of information, both negative and positive, it's a stimulus overload, for these kids especially. So I say that to say that everything is being, multiplied faster. Everything's happening faster, quicker, crazier. And when it comes to this concept of what's happening with new technology, to your question, Austin, right? What I'll say that's happening with NFTs and all that, I'll explain the inception analogy there. But Brian, to your point, because we kind of that was part of the spinoff here, which was it took you a long time to come to a place to trust people, to be able to be open, to be able to see what's available to you. So, for you, I guess, what would you say to someone else out there who may have been way out of service for 5 or 10 or 20 years, or may know someone in that same predicament? Because you know how it is, right? We don't sometimes go to the doctor. It's our spouse who pushes us to the doctor, or someone else. What would you say to someone else out there as far as, who may potentially be on the fence of either looking or asking a question?
Yeah, that's a good point. Good question. And honestly, I think that my buddy that I've known since back in junior high, we happened to join the Army together. And it was only because of him pushing me, or at least encouraging me, over a period of months that I actually kind of broke down and actually contacted the VA and started that journey. So having that, and I don't know if there's an equivalent in the other branches, but in the Army we've got battle buddies, and that's because you need that support system. If you're an Army of one, and I never did really care for that slogan, Army of one.
Oh yeah, be all that you can be in the Army.
That's right. So we're not Rambo. We're not an Army of one. So having that buddy, and if you know somebody that might be struggling, they may not. When we're dealing with these issues, we don't necessarily know that what might be behind it. We don't know what might be causing us to feel the way that we are. We might not have any association that because of something that happened back in service is what's causing me to not be able to maintain a job for more than a year and a half, and or being able to concentrate. There's all kinds of things that could flare up, right? And that's again going back to the mental health, and so again, 26 years of suffering. He went through it. Finally, he initially had started his journey and encouraged me because of that. So I would say, number one, if you know somebody, encourage them to get out there and just, you don't have to push them, but just keep encouraging them. And eventually, when it's time for them, then they'll take that step. But I'd also say on the flip side, when it's you that's going to take that journey, man, I can tell you, because it's just so fresh in my mind. Whenever I started that journey, it's so confusing, it's intimidating, and plus you're thinking, how in the world? Why would the VA even acknowledge any of my conditions this far out? I didn't just get out 6 months ago. Um, so 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 plus, like DP said, 40 plus years in some cases. Let me tell you, there might be some, and we talked about presumptive conditions previously, and yes, there might be some type of time limit on certain presumptive claims. But in general, if you've got something that's connected to service, just because it's been however much time doesn't mean that you're timed out. It's time to explore with the VA those conditions and find out what it is. And it's confusing. Anytime you're going through into a bureaucratic maze that is anything, bureaucratic, anything government, but the VA is a government organization, and it can be intimidating to go through that. It's made up of lots of laws and regulations, and as we've become uh, experts
Hmm.
by way of practical execution, we become familiar with those 38 CFR or 38 Code of Federal Regulations that govern or guide the VA's a disability and what makes you eligible.
Hmm.
What do they look at for when they're doing these ratings? And so, I reached out to two different VSOs whenever I started my journey. And again, there are free resources out there like VSOs. You got the DAV, you've got all these other organizations out there, even your state organizations. But whenever I went through that exercise, I found that was no really of no value. It just didn't help me that much at all. And so thankfully, I ran into a DP, and that's the reason because of that kind of support and that guidance to say, okay, you don't have to be confused. You don't have to guess what kind of evidence you need for X claim
Hmm.
based off of X, Y, Z
Yeah.
conditions, and having that guidance, that expert guide to navigate that makes a huge difference. And understanding the pitfalls because of lessons learned and of the thousands of vets that we've helped, we've learned a lot of lessons, and we see a lot of patterns
Hmm.
that with the way the VA comes back with rating decisions. We see patterns in how what kind of pitfalls happen in CMP exams or compensation and pension exams. Uh, so there's a lot, and when you're first starting that journey, there's no way that you can know all that. And so, going out and reaching out to somebody who has that experience and have figured it out and how to share that with others is, I think, critical. You can either waste years and decades trying to figure that out and get frustrated because it is frustrating, um, in fact, I was just having this conversation with a vet today. He thought that because he had been denied a claim before, he couldn't apply for anything else.
Hmm.
No, that's not the case.
Right, but it's a common thing
Yeah,
that you see a lot. So a few things, right? I'll say because you said that, and I actually thought about it. Most of us came into service thinking that we were gonna, definitely be pulling one of those Rambos. So this is
absolutely.
kind of what we thought we were coming in for. All right. So this is like one of those memes, right? Like expectation, right, versus reality. So
That
that's
would
what
be in
we
my head.
thought. Yeah, that's what we thought we were doing, and then we ended up literally in this situation many a times. And if you weren't out there, pounding pavement, you're probably doing something along the lines of being in vehicles and convoys. So it probably may have looked something like that. Who knows? uh, so there's a little
That's
expectation to reality.
virtual reality.
But you did say something that actually. So Nathan brought this up, and I actually had it queued up. Let me un-Rambo myself here. Actually, I think Rambo might be a better thing there to have. But I will say that, let's see here. When it comes to let's see, he said he had his rating. Um, Screwed back surgeries and so forth didn't go back because of fear of obviously being lowered, right? And that goes back into some fear mongering and things that people just rumor mill and things like that, which is not true. So I really wanted to bring this up because I think this is actually pretty pertinent to the conversation. So this is the CFR itself. And one area here that I really wanted to focus on, and again, we talk about things. It's not just saying, hey, we just thought this up. When we're saying, hey, we've served over 5,000 plus veterans who've submitted, who've won, who've done, and gone forward and done great things, experience comes with that, right? So there's a plethora of things, and even on staff we have veterans who were VSOs and have had a background, who've been in the legal field. So I mean, it's not just randomly we're picking people apart. There's a reason or a method to the madness. But there's a lot of things here in the CFR when we start to look at, how the VA begins to look at things. So now this is not what your VSO tells you. It's not what the lawyer tells you. This is what the law says. This is what they must adhere to. This is what governs the schedule of rating for disabilities for the VA, right? So here we're looking at, again, specifically, the law, right? So I just wanted to preface that here. And they talk about different things which are interesting here, which is interpretation of reports, medical examination, reasonable doubt, evaluation of evidence, and we're looking at, for example, the higher two ratings. So this is one example here to answer your question, Nathan. So let's say, for example, someone says for a higher two rating specifically, right? Oh, I'm not going to file for an increase because they may deny it, blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is, if you're teetering on the next bracket up, right, the VA has the ability to look at these two things and award the higher of two ratings. But sometimes you get, Google friendly and you start looking at things saying, oh, wait a second, I don't think I have all these symptoms. Well, first of all, you're the veteran. So maybe just be a veteran. And you being a veteran may go ahead and make a point to just let the doctors do the doctor business and raters do the rater business, right? So that's one point there for sure that I wanted to hit on. But this is one that's interesting to me because it's what, Brian, you alluded to. When it comes to functional impairment, right? So the basis of a disability evaluation, right, when you start looking at it, is the ability of the body as a whole, or the psyche or system or organ of the body to function in order for ordinary conditions of daily life, including employment. When you hear me say social and occupational impairment, why are we saying that? Because it specifically is identifying here, we're talking about impairment, right, of ordinary daily life, including employment. So there's two different things at play here, right? Don't just tell me there's an issue at work or employment-wise. I'm telling you that your personal life also matters into this. So it goes on to talk about the fact that they have to, do all they can do and consider that, again, it's not just one thing only, right? The basis of disability evaluations is the ability of the body as a whole, or the psyche, so again, right, psych, internal conditions or physical conditions. So it's not just, oh, I don't have a back pain problem, blah, blah, blah. But this is what's interesting here, and this is the law. In this connection, right, if you're able to make the argument, it will be remembered that a person may be too disabled to engage in employment, although he or she is up and about and fairly comfortable at home or upon limited activity. And this is when we start having a conversation about. I'm not saying that every day of Austin's waking life is he in pain, but you know how your body goes and the things you deal with. Your mental health is not always at the brink of disaster, but like a pendulum, you go through things. And I think just being able to have conversations and look at these things and understand that this is, it's more to give you the reassurance that you have the ability to make your argument to the VA. It's necessary, because if not, then you don't know what the VA will look at. And again, things may look right, but Brian, you look fine to me. You don't have any issues. Well, first of all, that's not how we're judging something, right? Well, DP, I don't see how you have type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes. What's the conversation here? Right? Like we need to, get to a place of removing what others may have thought, or what others may have or may think, or the fact that I heard someone say this is the way and that's the way. And in the military and the army especially, we call them barracks lawyers, right? Everybody thinks they know something because one guy. I am telling you, we have receipts for over 5,000 people in the span of many years that says, hey, we've talked to a lot of people, right? And because of that, you pick up patterns, like Brian said. So it's not just, hey, I think one guy I know did a thing. Like, no, I can tell you 50 stories of a thing, right? And I say that to say that that's the kind of conversation that we need to be able to have. But I think it's, pertinent to be able to have these conversations and show, what's in here, right? Why the VA looks at things a certain way. We have videos and things that we've talked about: disability, 100%, avoiding pyramiding, for example, one condition cannot be awarded on top of the other because, for example, how can you separate, depression from anxiety? Well, they're all mental health conditions and they're all pretty much exhibiting certain symptoms. So understanding how the VA looks at certain things is key too. But this again goes into the CFR and kind of what that looks like there. So, when we're having a conversation, you'll see us do that, right? Like, hey, don't take my word for it. Right? The law is the law, right? We're interpreting here what it is. And as a veteran, you have the ability to know exactly what you're able to do, what the rules say, what are, the conditions for this or that, et cetera, and so forth. So a big one that I look at here too, and I always say to people, is the analogous ratings. Analogous ratings looks at the fact is there is no rating for your prostate having issues, but you may be rated for avoiding dysfunction, or a inability to, or a frequency issue, right? So is your prostate, for example, now causing issues to where you're urinating, like a racehorse all the time, or you cannot go at all, right? That's all by way of the prostate. But how exactly are we going to do this? So some conditions are not going to be necessarily easy to be able to say, hey, this is what it is, but it's similar to this, closely relatable to this. So when an unlisted condition is encountered, it is permissible to rate under a closely related disease or injury in which not only the function affected, but the anatomical localization and symptomology are closely analogous. So it's like close enough, right? And it kind of answers what you're dealing with. So if you don't know that, it becomes a thing of like, well, I've never heard anybody getting rated for, peeing too much because of the prostate issues. First of all, who told you that, right? Brian, some thoughts on your side?
Yeah, and so this is great because hey, it's not us just trying to make up something. This is all we're doing is we are conveying what the law says or what the regulations say, and again, when we help guide vets through this process, um, we can help pinpoint. Okay, you need to understand more about why the VA is rating your mental health. What are they looking at when they're rating mental health, or what are they looking at when they rate migraines?
Mm-hmm.
You understanding what it is that you're being evaluated on makes a huge difference to you being able to go in and effectively speak to how that condition is affecting you and impairing you in a way that the VA can connect the dots to these rating criteria. So we don't tell people what to say. We just teach you how to speak to your truth and speak to it in a way that the VA can then make their decisions in a way that hopefully that they'll acknowledge that is most favorable to your condition. uh, at your appropriate level, right?
Hmm.
So um, it, it's just something that you have to do. It's homework, right? But it's important.
Yeah,
And
and I'll say here, when it comes to this again, migraines is a good example because you're able to really talk about things. But if someone were dealing with migraines, let's say because of the fact that they're on all this medication, they have all these other issues, the first thing you think about is, well, all right, the VA is going to call me in, and I'm going to tell them about all the things that I have, and all the medications I have, and all the doctors I've talked to. And here's the reality, right? You have to understand the basics of the argument, right? The thing I said is that when it comes to disability, a disability is in and of itself now a medical condition that has risen by virtue of its symptoms to a condition now that's impairing you, both occupationally and socially when it comes to VA matters, right? So, in this argument here, you have seen the VA and you've seen your doctor and you're on medication, and that falls under what is called under the VA if you take care there. If you don't, it's fine. But if you do get care at the VA, conversations of medication, the doctors you've seen, that's all healthcare related. And that falls under the VHA, which is the Veterans Health Administration. That's where medication comes into play and all the other things related to healthcare. The minute you're having a conversation about benefits, right? That's the BVA. That is the Veterans Benefit Administration. There are two different administrations, right? When you look at benefits and you look at healthcare, two different things. So I say that to say that when it comes to this argument here of migraines, we've established that you have a condition, a diagnosis, and you have medication. You see a doctor and a neurologist, and you get Botox shots and all these things. That's fine. Now the argument here when it comes to benefit is specifically two things they're looking at, right? The rating is either going to be a 0, a 10, a 30, or a 50. And they're looking at, right, are you dealing with an instance here where you have migraines with very frequent, completely prostrating and prolonged attacks that productive of severe economical inability. So what this means here now is, are you having instances where this thing is causing you, prostrating attacks, and the frequency is such that it's happening severely over and over, where you're missing work and things like that, right? Under that, you have characteristics of prostrating attacks occurring on an average of once a month over the last several months. Under that, you have characteristics of prostrating attacks. Prostrating means you have to prostrate, lay down, stop, turn off the lights. You can't do what you were doing. Over averaging 1 in 2 months over the last months, or under that with less frequent attacks. So it's key that, okay, you have the severity, but the frequency. So severity and frequency are the two things here when it comes to migraines. So if you, for example, have a valid argument for migraines, right? And again, this is not telling you what to say. This is just telling you what the law says. You have to know how to be able to make the argument, right? Because the fact is, if you fall into the bracket of getting an average of 1 every 2 months or so, then you're at the 10% range, right? If you are in the range of getting 1 on a month on average, you're looking in the 30% range. And if you're more frequent than 1, 2, 3 a month, and it's happening to a point now where you're burning through leave and you're not able to go to work, and it's happening at a pace more than once a month, then that is key to look at the fact that it is risen to the 50% range. Now, when it comes to this, you can start having arguments, conversations about logging it, different apps you can do to be able to showcase those things. Because the fact of the matter is, right, you need to be able to showcase this, right? You need to be able to argue this. It's legally and ethically, you have to be able to speak your truth. So there's not a play here where it's like, well, if you say this, that happens. You go down that rabbit hole of making fraudulent claims, you are liable then potentially to be caught in a situation that's just not worth it. Because the fact of the matter is, anyone who's missing work and missing birthday parties and missing family events will do anything to not have to deal with these conditions. So we need to normalize talking about disabilities, but not to the point where now it becomes well, Billy said this and he got that. Well, I know also people who say that they have issues with their insulin because of the fact that they're type 1 diabetics and they got a whole bunch of medication for diabetes. Do you want some insulin? You don't have diabetes, so why would you want it, right? So, and people are going to always try to game the system, but I really want to just say that because, we don't do that when it comes to medical things, but when it comes to benefits, it's weird that everybody starts doing the whole, well, Brian, you have this, I want that too. You're going to say something?
I think you touched on something. So you talked about journaling. it's one thing to know what they're looking at. It's another thing to understand what kind of evidence is it that's going to support this um, support these conditions that you're dealing with and this level of severity. The journaling is a great example of one piece of evidence that can go to support your claim so that you can show, because you've made contemporaneous recordings
Hmm.
of these prostrating episodes over a period of time. Then yeah, migraine buddy is one popular one. um, so the type of evidence is another thing. So understanding what the VA is looking for from the conditions or the symptoms, and how is it impairing you, but then how do you communicate that through the evidence? The evidence can come through the journals. It can come through personal statements, but you also have to understand, you have to make sure that your evidence is focused narrowly on the condition that you're pursuing. So, for example, I had this again another conversation today. Somebody wanting to go for a mental health claim, and they wanted to know, should they include information about migraine or their feet or other things that might be aggravating mental health symptoms. But it's like, no.
Because you're basically throwing the kitchen sink at it. And
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
understand, right? You have been denied how many times, and at this point, it's like just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And I will
Exactly.
tell you that, to Brian's point, it's like in the military, right? When you learn how to shoot, you learn how to make every round count, right? So it's not spraying and praying; it's you're on target. If you don't know what you're doing, then yes, that's the way people file claims. Put everything under the sun, add all the notes you have and every doctor visit you had, and throw it at the wall, and maybe the VA will give you something. And if it does, thank you, system, for 30%. That's not strategy. And again,
Yeah.
strategy is everything. And again, we as veterans come from strategy, right? So think about this for a second. We do the business of warfare when we served with strategy. Any job that you've had in the military had a process and a strategy of how you did that thing, right? How do you maneuver aircrafts? How do you maneuver sea vessels? How do you maneuver land operations, right? There's strategy in all these things. So everything we do in some shape, fashion, and form, there's a strategy involved into it all. So when it comes to, let's say, marksmanship, there's a strategy, right? There's breath, right? There's trigger pull, right? There's eyesight alignment, right? So the fact of the matter is, guess what? If I know how to do something, and again, I'm a retired law enforcement officer. So I served as an air marshal, and not the Wesley Snipes type, and not the ones that drink before the plane like Liam Neeson. But one of the things that we pride ourselves in, and that those amazing individuals who right now are 30,000 feet in the air with no backup. Because think about this for a second: 30,000 feet, 30,000 feet in the air, no backup. Right? It's just you and whoever you are with. What that number is like, I can't say, but your team is your team. And the fact of the matter is, ain't no backup coming. So when it comes to marksmanship, we take a lot of pride in the fact that we're good at what we do. So I say that to say that no one starts off being that good a marksman, because you need to be able to, right, be on target in an aircraft with worst case scenario, turbulence, rocking, movement, screaming people, madness. So it's not a static environment. You're literally in an aircraft that, when things hit the fan, it's not going to be a straight, street environment that nothing moves, right? Everything is moving. So we take pride in the fact that we're good marksmen, is my point. My point is, you don't get there without practice. So if we were to say, let's say we go to the range, and, Brian, for example, he's pretty proficient, and he comes out and, let's say gets on target, pop, 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 right? 3 shots over 2 seconds, right? And then you have one of the people from my world who come in and they're like, pop, 6 shots, 1.5 seconds. How the heck did it happen? Well, it's practice, right? You know what I mean? And because repetition, practice, knowing what you're doing. Take that same concept, strategy, training, etc., into this. So the question is, do you have to file a claim one at a time? No, you don't. But you have to know what you're claiming and how you're claiming it and how to be effective in every single one. So if the argument here becomes we're going to go for migraines, then this is what must be into that claim. We must serve it to them in a silver platter, so there is no issue here, right? If we're adding other things, then those things have to be able to make sense, right? We're only putting what's needed into this conversation, right? And maybe the strategy is that we have to make first the argument for you who have never filed a claim. So Brian comes in, he's never filed a claim. So the first one that say we're going to tackle becomes the main thing to service. Because what bothers Brian today, right? Let's say is his foot. His foot is, let's just say his lower back is killing him. That is what is like, Brian, what's wrong with you? My back. I am always in pain. But the fact is, it's not service connected, nor will it ever be. What we have to look at is that it's been 26 years. So in Brian's case, right, let's say Brian's airborne, Brian jumped out of planes. Brian developed flat feet and some bad knees. And that bad foot condition, right, exacerbated the bad knees, in turn threw off how he walks, which threw off his gait, which now caused back issues, misalignment, and so forth. So that chain reaction of how something affects the other. Right? You have migraines, you're rated for that, you take medication for that. That medication, sadly, because you take it so much, causes acid reflux or some kind of indigestion issue. That's a secondary claim, not a primary. So you can't say, oh, the military is, responsible for this. No. It's because of this rated condition that caused this other thing. So knowing how to sequence something makes sense. And you have to know that, right? So that's where I say there has to be strategy here, because again, and I keep saying this because I know people are going to want to say it or reference it, but if you don't know how to do something, then you're just being sloppy with it. So you're spraying and praying, right? If you were to put a boxer in a ring with no strategy, he's just swinging. Like, no, we're working the body. Keep working the body, guard the left. You're putting your hand down. You're going to get clocked. Go for that hook, right? So the fact of the matter is understanding how you sequence things together. Because when you see someone at the top of their game, it's like literally, amazing to see it done, right? Because they're top of the game. So when it comes to this claim business, it's the same thing. You have to know how to make your argument, how to say your truth, how to be able to speak to it, and how to put together the evidence that's necessary for your argument and not overkill it with needless thing because someone told you a thing that they heard someone else say that worked for them. Completely different situations. So that's why everybody's situation must be different. I can't give you a training program for you that doesn't work for him, right? For Brian, because he has a bad knee condition, a bad back condition, we might have to work his cardio or his physical condition this way. But this other client might need another way. So every veteran's going to need a different strategy, a different thing. So when the question becomes, hey, how do we serve? Well, first have a conversation. What's going on with you? Where you at? What have you filed? What's been denied? What did you submit? Let's assess what we have and then make something out of this and put a plan to fix, right? So, to some of the comments that were in there, I would say, I'll work backwards. Mark says, breathe, relax, aim slowly, squeeze, follow through. Yep. And the same thing, right? Claim one done, good. Next, right? It's not going to happen overnight either. You have to be patient, right? Hey, sometimes they do, great. But I always say, again, train for 12 rounds of boxing. You may knock them out in one round, but guess what? We can go the distance if we need to. And the sad part is, no one goes the distance by themselves, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go with someone. The same thing applies here. You're not going to make it through this fight, especially if the odds are stacked against you or things were incorrectly filed or whatever the case may be. After a while, people just give up, right? And you owe it to yourself, your family, and the benefits that you are due to not just give up, right? And I get it. We've been there. All been denied. You know what I'm saying? Know what it's like to get punched in the gut. But, like Rocky movie, get up, right? Uh-huh. Take the 4 count, take the 5 count, now get up. I'm not saying get up right now. Hey, take a count, take a knee, take a breath. You good? Back in there, right? Let's see. Don't give in to the denials. No, because again, even if the denials come, I'll tell you, sometimes something is missing. So 2 + 2 is 4. But if you keep submitting 1 + 2, you're never going to get 4, right? So maybe something is missing in your argument. That's 1. 2, you might have an issue where it's just in the wrong hands, the wrong table. You might have to appeal it, and the next person sees it and says, "Oh, this person's wrong." All right. I got a buddy that needs some help. He's deep into the process. Where head on over to Veterans Network. .club. The contact us or the service page is where you'll be able to actually, sign up and give us information, and we'll get in contact with you all. So we have about a 48, 72 hour, turnaround. So if you go to Veterans Network, go to services, I believe we plugged in the page for the benefit support, so you should be able to see it there. If not, head on over to, so I know we're with the reset that we have. Head over to contact us and just give us information, and we'll get back with you. Or head on over. I want to say, is the plugin there? Yep. Yeah, so you'll be able to kind of see some information here as well for the veteran support side of the house. Get some information there, and if you want to, give us your information, this will collect the data there and it'll kind of feed it to us. So those are the two areas there. So services will take you to us as well. Let's see. Brian, you had something you were going to say.
Yeah, the strategy is really so.
I'm sorry, Brian. I have Rick typed something that almost I was reading it and I heard a song. Everything is connected, and I like the whole song. The neck, the knee, like the backbone's connected to the hip bones connected to the it's literally, we sang the song. But the fact is, and Rick knows this firsthand. He's a living testament of it. Things are connected. And you have an argument to make. Sometimes it may take a little time, but I just thought that was comical when Rick brought that up. Actually, Rick said something else earlier, which I also wanted to bring up, specifically to how long we've been doing this. He said, we were using Zoom before Zoom was cool. So you go back, like now it's fancy. You got little intros and we got hats and stuff. Man, look, you go back and it's literally like almost... when you see like a president goes into the White House and then leaves, like you see the before and after, it's like, man, so innocent, so young, so full of vigor, and then all these denials later and all these daggone, after the fact, here we are. But yeah, we were doing these as Zooms, in our private, groups, and we'd have Tuesday CMP sessions live, and I'd just be in there just blah 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 blah, doing stuff. And now I don't have to do it by myself anymore, which is great. But yeah, using Zoom before Zoom was cool. And it's funny because then the pandemic happens. So when we talk about businesses, right? I've always done this virtual. So we've always been virtual to a good degree. So this is pre-pandemic. So the pandemic come, people start talking about telehealth, all that. We've been doing that stuff. Like that's always been the thing. So when it comes to like what's this business development thing, like I literally get, reached out by companies that want to go virtual, and it's just like I've always done that. So let's have a conversation. Which goes back into, even if organizations, I'll need y'all to, let me see. We don't have a million viewers, but keep your keep your fingers crossed. If, Johnson & Johnson reaches out and they want some, liaising, some advisory, DP is available. That's the whale. And 5% of that will go, obviously, to charities and so forth. So when I get reached out and I do work on the side, consulting and business development, because it takes different forms, right? So even if I go somewhere and do something, right, 5% of all that still goes back to the business. So just for those that are, fun fact. So when I'm not doing this, I may be doing it offline. I may be doing a speaking engagement. I may be doing something else. If there's a consulting fee or an advisory fee, or they want me to come in to do some things, be surprised what people need help with, 5% of that goes elsewhere. And it's always weird because I guess I'm one of the only consultants and whatever you want to call me when you contract with me that actually says, yeah, 5% goes to this. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I don't care. I don't know what you're going to, what does it look like? But, this looks like a job. There's going to be this much, and it's 5%, that goes this way. And they like it. And I think it's cool because we can serve and help. But I always say, one day Johnson & Johnson will need some kind of military liaison type of situation. 5% is all I'm going to say. All right, back to you, Brian.
There might be something else in the works on the technology side that might be not Johnson & Johnson, but still pretty big. So,
what? You think that this stuff was coordinated, but I promise you, if you've watched it long enough, none of it's coordinated. It is completely shooting from the hip. We're going to write the book on success by the hip.
That's right.
This is a technology that, I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to let Brian finish his thought, but there's something here cool that I want to definitely share. Back to you.
No, so just real quick on the strategy, it is so critical. If you have a good strategy, it is going to improve the the rating that you might ultimately get, that you're eligible for and that you deserve. And I say that because you might be focused on things that are at the top of your mind because the neck is a pain in the neck and it's constantly bothering you, or your back is constantly bothering you, or your knees, or whatever. Well, the reality is you may be overlooking other conditions that you're dealing with that, instead of getting 10% or 20% for your neck, if you have a mental health condition, that could go to 100%. So part of the strategy is not only um, stacking these in a way that they might build off of each other, it's also focusing on the ones that were going to be the most impactful for you at the end of the day. Because that, the reality is that yes, sometimes that you need evidence that you don't have, and you need to invest in, say, a medical nexus letter or something like that, or a psych eval. That's an investment into uh, getting your claim processed and getting the rating that you deserve. But not all of us have unlimited funds, and so you need to. We want to be responsible, I guess, in our recommendations and how you spend and invest your money. And I do look at it as an investment, because at the end of the day, that money that I pay towards that letter or that evaluation is going to go towards a rating that's going to provide me tax-free monthly income, um, possibly, for the rest of my life. So it's important not only to focus on what it is that you're dealing with, but not throwing everything at the wall at once, but also focusing on those that are going to give you the best return on your investment. Um, and let me tell you, these secondary conditions that DP brought up, I had never heard of a secondary condition, and honestly, I haven't come across a vet yet who. Well, I'll put this. I could probably count on one hand how many vets knew what a secondary condition was when I first started talking to them. And what that is means that it's not something it's not directly connected to service. But if I had my neck directly connected to service, but that neck is because of the way I'm having to adjust the way I move my body, um, it's affecting other systems of my body, just like Rick, sang us the song, the hip bone's connected to the knee bone. The body is just a series of connected systems. And so one thing that's directly connected to service because of something that may have happened in service could aggravate other conditions. So just because you're dealing with something and you're saying, well, this didn't happen in service, it may be related to something. And that's just the whole picture has to be evaluated whenever you're developing a strategy. And those are things that we look at and encourage you to look at and keep an open mind because, again, it is an education. It's an educational journey. You're going to learn more about yourself.
Did you say picture?
Picture. That's right.
Because that's literally verbatim, from the CFR, right?
Yep.
The disability picture more nearly approximates the criteria required for that rating, and that's how they're looking at that. Like, what's the total that you're dealing with here to better understand how best to rate and assign said rating for the condition the veteran is dealing with. So I just thought it was pretty cool. Real quickly though, here we got Mark in the house. Said sorry that I'm late to the party. You are never late, my friend. Fashionably showing up in style. So thank you for being here. Let's see. Karen says 2-6 to fight too much. Yep, completely understand. Completely. Let's see. Sure. I think I just saw a message come over. So I think I saw you give us your information. Catching up on some comments here. Regular vet, we gave you there. Again, the funny part of everything is connected. It's the truth. And again, if you don't know how to argue that, because really, again, right? Because people always misconstrue things. So if you fell off a truck and that hurt your back, and that back situation affected how other things work, i.e. your knees and then your feet and so forth, and because of that you take now medication, which in turn causes another thing. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to walk that backwards. So it's not me telling you how to do a thing, is you being able to better explain what you're dealing with, right? So let's say, for example, and it's not Rick, but I'm just saying because he's up here, right? So let's say, for example, Rick has, you know, a crazy, crazy condition of acid reflux and you know, intestinal issues, and that's what he's arguing about. And it's like, that's not what we're arguing right now. Because the fact is, working backwards, right? Why do you have this, you know, medication you take which causes you headaches, right? So you have headaches that's due because it's medication. Well, what medication do you take that causes headaches? Well, my acid reflux, intestinal stuff, right? Okay. But what caused then the acid reflux, intestinal stuff? Well, the medication I took for the pain. Well, why were we taking medication for pain? Well, the pain was because of, you know, my foot pain, etc. Well, what caused the foot pain, right? Well, because of the fact of blah, 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 back to my back when I was in service, I fell down, hurt my back, and that kind of, you know, started a whole series of domino effects. So like a domino effect of situation, years of, you know, after service, we have to work backwards. So the argument becomes the back, right? Secondary to the back, then the knee and the feet came. Then because of that, the medication came, which in turn caused the migraine situation, which in turn caused the medication for the migraine situation, when we have caused now the acid reflux stuff. You know what I'm saying? And again, this is not something that happens overnight. This is 20 years of work. This is 20, 30 years of dealing with something. So that evolution of how that's happened, if you do not know how to understand and make that argument, that's the reason the VA keeps denying you. Because there's nothing in service that said because you served, right, you have this argument here for this. No. It's because you served, and there's documentation that this accident happened. That in turn led to a series of events, a domino effect of medical ailments and conditions that in your life may have been expanded over 5 to 10, 15 years. So if you understand how to break that down, right, you understand, okay, what are we tackling now? Because you're due it, right? This is what's causing your issue. All right. So, and you're entitled to it, and you have the ability to file for it. But if you don't know how to stagger and make your argument, that's part of the problem. So that's an example there, right, of just kind of making that up, just to talk it through, you know, using Rick as an example. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see here. Appreciate you, Karen, for helping out for sure. Let's see here. Hit with the right strategy. Tactics are easy. I'm saying, hey, you know, tactics, that's it. You know, slow, smooth, moves fast. All right, yeah, back to you, Brian. And then we'll jump over here for a second. But that's, you know, just that kind of makes sense. You know, we're answering questions, obviously, as they're coming in. But I think that's definitely something worth kind of hammering down on a little bit.
Yeah, and that's really the main thing that I wanted to say about the strategy. Just kind of elaborate on that a little in that way. That, you know, it's a picture. It's the holistic picture of everything that you're dealing with, and understanding how to tell that story and how these things relate to one thing relates to another. You know, you might wonder, how could my type 2 diabetes be related to my back? Well, okay, when you're talking about a literal connection, there might not be a literal connection between the two. But having knowledge of things like a court decision back in 2020 that said obesity can be an intermediate step. So those are things that just takes time to learn. But having somebody who has that experience, there's just a lot of things that that you can be educated on that will provide opportunities for disability compensation that you might not realize that you deserve, but you do because the law says you do.
Right. All right. And some of the things that I definitely think we're going to eventually start rolling out is courses and classes and offerings that you'll start seeing. So I always keep saying, head on back to veteransnetwork.club, because as we start doing things, right, the site will evolve. New things will show up. So you may see, for example, that we begin to offer classes, right? How to write a letter, how to write a statement, right? So we can talk about resume writing and all that stuff, but sometimes, well, how do I even write a statement about what I'm dealing with, right? Like, KISS. Keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? Soldier, sailor, right? Keep it simple, because the fact of the matter is, I don't need, my wife, when she watches this, she'll laugh. We don't need a 7-page supporting letter of the boats and things that happen in service. Like, no, give me, make it a 1-pager, a 2-pager. Get to the point. What did you observe? What is Brian dealing with? Right? Someone else is reading this stuff. No one's gonna sit there and read 20 pages of a manifesto of a thing. Right? I get it. You dealt with it. You want them to, but let's be realistic. There's another 20 cases on someone's desk, and they're gonna skim and keep it moving. So those are some things, for example, there that I think are definitely pertinent. But we'll have things and new offerings, that will be available. So a lot of those offerings, again, will be offered to folks, who are following us. Public offerings. Some of them will be closed. So our website, eventually, you'll also see we will create a members area. And that will take different forms, right? So I'm not saying because you become a member, you're automatically paying for a thing. No, it may just mean different tiers of membership, right? So having access to some closed events that we may have, that may have different forms. So, I want to be inclusive, but I also want to be able to provide value for those that are definitely needing a little more personal touch for things. So, having a Zoom session class, not broadcasted, not recorded, private, so you feel comfortable not knowing that, people might be reading what we're saying after the fact. So different things to definitely highlight and show. But to that point, right, we kind of alluded to one of the organizations that we are we're doing some testing with is actually one of these organizations. If you've been to the VA, they probably have given you some medical apparatuses, devices, and things to deal with either migraines or different things. And this organization, we're going to be doing a pilot beta test with them, and hopefully have the ability to be able to provide some of these for veterans out there. So this works on a variety of different ways: electromagnetical fields, similar to things that people put like TENS devices, minds of TENS, being able to alter mood and kind of mitigate things. So some pretty interesting information that will come for sure. So there's more to follow on this. Obviously, we have some meetings that we're going to be doing, some onboarding, some trial testing, kind of seeing, ourselves first. So we're not saying go run out and get a thing. We're saying, hey, we're looking into different things, again, being transparent and showcasing some of the things that are there. So this is a promising development that, again, may be a benefit or use for someone. And because, let's say, we're able to partner with them, all that means is that we have the potential to share that information with our veterans, and at the same token potentially pass on some savings for them there as well. So I always look at that as I want to be able to coordinate and liaise those relationships to provide for our clients and our demographic new things. And that doesn't mean just because you got, a significant discount at this organization, there's some kind of kickback on this side. That's not the play here, right? I don't necessarily do business that way. I think that sometimes you just do things because you can, because they're available. And if they help someone and they're good, then that's really what we want to be able to set up and do, right? There's other revenues and other avenues for revenue. Not everything needs to be a quick buck flip. But that's what that device is. Here's one of the devices themselves, so you kind of get an idea. So this thing can kind of go around your neck and go on your head if you want to, and has different settings, and you can kind of have it alter a mood or send a signal to do a thing. So it's been pretty interesting. Like I said, we're going to have some more meetings to talk about it, but and actually monitor it over a period of time. So that's one of the devices, but that's what it looks like. Nothing too crazy compared to like the website. So, it's fun. Cool stuff. They reached out to us and saw the things that we were doing, and wanted to just kind of run us through a trial to see what it looks like. And we'll give you our honest review and thoughts on it. And like anything else, maybe it's something that works for Brian but doesn't work for me, or vice versa, right? So being able to have the team at least kind of test these things out, I think it's going to be cool, because we can share that information for sure there. So I think that's cool. LB, my brother, shared with us here. Started filing in 92, only got 10%, got to 40 by himself 2012, learned to write statements and strategy with coaches October 2020, went from 70 in November and up to 90 in January. Appreciate that. So again, it's a process. And again, for maybe the journey stops at 90, maybe the journey stops at 70. Everybody's journey is different, so there's no one quick number way for what it is, right? It's just, are you due in getting what you deserve? I think that's the biggest key when it comes to these conversations. So, but testing different things, again, it'd be remiss to not talk about the fact that these are things that we're working on. So I just think it's cool to be able to say, hey, look, this is some stuff we're doing. Because sometimes you know how people say like, oh, we're doing stuff, and it's just like, are you really doing stuff? Like, you're like, no, we're literally doing stuff. Like we're testing stuff, we're doing stuff, we're meeting with people, we're having conversations, we're liaising, price points and stuff like that to be able to potentially, offer somebody something, right? You pop enough pills, you do enough stuff that's like, maybe an option to mitigate fatigue, to help sleep, to mitigate physical pain may help, right? And if you're someone who's been through the gamut of all these different things, at some point you get tired of being in pain or tired of being tired of being tired. And if something works, please, I'll have one of those. Please and thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like for many of us, it's almost like, hey, look, we've tried everything under the sun. So, hey, can we try other things? And again, because we have access and we have a platform, people do reach out and tell us about the things that they're doing. So I want to be able to pass that all to you all. Again, most businesses won't talk about stuff until it's concrete, sign, and deliver. No, we're testing stuff, and we'll let as we get there. But some cool stuff for sure there. You know what I mean? Like we're always testing some stuff. Like literally, I don't know if you ever seen one of these little bits, but I think this is pretty dope. Have you seen these?
I
It's
have not
actually
seen that.
so this is actually just pure H2O. I mean oxygen rather in a bottle. This has 200 1 second inhalations that pretty much you can take. So it's like a but
That is cool.
it's not like an asthma thing, right? It's like if we were thinking like if you're high climbing altitude or you're like in the hospital and they give you pure oxygen, then that's kind of what this is. Obviously not a medical device, but it's pretty much saying, hey, is this something that if we were to get that brush of pure oxygen, right, concentrated, how would that work, right? So there's 95% pure oxygen that pretty much is in this bottle. What's weird is that it's literally light. What's air, right? But it's compressed
Yeah.
air, so it's not heavy. So when you pick it up, it feels empty, and like the little sign says, may seem empty, but it's not.
Right.
But this is like aerobic performance, recovery charge, altitude, and poor air quality situations. So these are things, like I said, that we test out, we try, we reach out to folks, and we're able to work out something. It's always like, hey, I think some vets might like this, right? And that's kind of how this whole NFT conversation came to be. To Austin's questions, looking at NFTs, looking at what this new website looks like, and what this new website looks like, or what this new internet looks like, is basically looking at saying we came from a place of Web 1. And then Web 1 was literally chat boards, just you read something online, Encyclopedia Britannica type of stuff, right? And that's it. And then you went to Web 2 where you had the ability to start actually, interfacing, interacting, exchanging information with the web, with the internet, right? Facebooks, Amazons, buying things, exchanging information, uploading things, right? This is Web 2. And Web3 now begins to go into a different place where you have decentralization, you have the ability to have some ownership. So now things that I own can go on to the blockchain, can go on to the internet. We'll go into deeper dives in other sessions, but people get really wrapped up in the title and the name. And I would offer to you all that none of you can tell me the app or what's under the app that you're using, or you won't be able to tell me the different things under the protocols you use right now. So, what is HTTPS? What kind of protocol you're using? What gateway are you going through? Where's the internet being housed? What kind of Amazon Web Service? Like many of you all don't know that half the things you use run on Amazon Web Service, right?
Yeah.
So when we get stuck in the names, it's like saying, well, I don't understand what Amazon Web Service is. Well, then why do we talk about NFTs as well? You know what I'm saying? Or blockchain. Like these are just names of systems that in the future won't be names of systems. So that's where the future is going to, and how we interact and how we exchange information, how we show ownership, etc. Those are the things that we're going into. So it's easy to get lost in just an NFT or an image or a picture, and really there's more to it than that. Brian, some thoughts on your side?
Yeah, you're right. And the technology, the NFT space particularly is something that again it's really fairly new. So most of us really don't know what that is. But it's not that it's just a developing technology. And I'm when you're going through talking about the not understanding the underlying technology, I was just thinking back to the days when I used to do SGML tagging. We used to scan documents and you have to go in there and through DOS and manually tag things. And nowadays you just scan it with your phone and you get the same, but actually get better results that you can use from that. So um, the thing is that it's just constantly changing now, and that's just the fact that the internet has speeded things up, speeded. My English ain't the best, but
That's why we have
you
spell
know,
check now. Right.
that's
But
right.
think
Yes,
about that, right? Like think about right just even that, just kind of again, top of my head. Think about old school typewriters, right? If you mistyped something, you'd have to get that white little piece of paper, right? For those who remember old school typewriters, you have to go
mm-hmm.
back, retype it the way you retyped it to be able to then type it the right way. Like that's like old school typewriter, right? Like
White it out.
right. Well,
Yeah.
even go back further, like when they had little tapes in there that you'd put the tape back in and kind of go over it, like and then white
Mm-hmm.
out and all these other things, and then fast forward the internet and fast forward now having the ability to do the things we do now. You don't have to do command prompts to launch a program. You just click an image and the image launches a program. No more start this, start that, command DOS, etc. Um, you know, so my point is to simplify all of that. To Brian's point, like he's saying as well, it's imagine if you had the ability to have this conversation as the dot com, rise was happening. We know what happened though. The bubble burst.
Mm-hmm.
But out of that bubble bursting, what emerged? The Googles of the world, the MySpaces, the Facebooks, all the companies that came afterward, right? The Yahoos, the AOLs, and so forth, and those that went up and those that went down. So the markets remained the same. And the fact of the matter is, we have the ability to have conversations like that now. Because again, many of us probably didn't have a connection or affinity for technology. We all consume it now, right? Like I'll never, you know, it's like think about it, right? Right now, someone in their house probably has every product of Apple under the sun, right? You have an iPad, right? You have an Apple Watch, you have an iPhone, you have a Mac, you have a whatever your brand is. But the question begins to tell me like one thing that is interesting is do a search of your Amazon purchase history. How much stuff have you purchased? Because it might be scary for some people. And here's the crazy thing: you could do a report of all your purchases, and the amount might be alarming. Sadly, if you've purchased so much and you've been such a consumer for so long, did you ever buy Amazon stock? Did you ever buy an Apple stock? Did you ever buy any of the things you frequent, right? Because again, this is not rocket science. It becomes all these things that you frequent and use over and over. Then there may be the things potentially that you should look into for potential, investments of sorts, right? So why not look into something like that to invest in if you have the ability to? Again, not financial advice. It's just saying for all the money you spent on Amazon, you probably could have got some ownership in there and looked at things different. So it's about moving from just being consumers to potentially being creators or being better stewards of the opportunities that are out there. So that's what all this is about, right? So it's not about getting lost in the nuances of new technology and crypto and all the fear mongering and NFTs and will these things go, will these things stay? It's like the Bryant Gumbel, I think it was. Was it Bryant Gumbel with the whole the whole clip of him back in the day or whoever it was, and they were like, "What is this internet? What is internet? What is this at sign thing?" And they were like, "Where you remember that is that one news article and they talk about the internet and they're like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
This fad of internet? Like email us at whatever optimum CBS NBC.com." Well, fast forward
Yeah.
now, everyone has internet, right? Right. There was a time where you would, if I told you you could buy something off the internet, you'd laugh at me. If I told you to buy groceries off the internet, you'd laugh at me. If I could tell you that, oh, taxis would come over the internet, you'd laugh at me. And today, what do we have? Uber Eats, Uber, right? Amazon, all these things where you don't even have to leave your house. But everything we're using, we literally would have laughed at ourselves had we said that those are things. So now the whole concept of, well, I'll never use a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. Every company, every organization, every entity has a website or has some kind of online presence. If anything, those that don't have are the outliers. So right now, this new technology, NFTs, crypto, blockchain, Web3, yeah, 99% of the population is not in the space. What I am saying is that history will repeat itself, and if you could be part of the at least knowing of the 1 to 3% in the beginning, it won't be like now where it's like you don't have a choice. You have to have an online account to pay your bill, or you have to have a cell phone to be able to do a thing, right? So that's what these conversations begin to help us do, at least, right? So break down the wall about what the future may hold. You had something, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the fact is that, and goes back to the fact that the collaborations that you've started are even going to help bring veterans and veteran artists even into this NFT space before um, the veteran artist, even knows what NFT stands for. So that's just part of the collaborative work and how DP and Veterans Network is working behind the scenes to lift up the veteran community in ways that it's just not going to be possible to fully appreciate until it starts to actually manifest itself. And so there's really some pretty exciting stuff. Um, I'm pretty simple. I'm looking forward to testing out those little collars, just as because the things and how that's supposed to help your body and the system, and how that can affect your energy or your whether you're calm or whatever. So um, it's just there's a lot of cool things coming, and I think that just because you don't necessarily understand what it is that we're talking about right now doesn't mean that you're excluded from being able to participate in these things. Just come along for the
So,
journey.
but that's a great point, right? And again, this is not at all a topic that I really had to talk about today. But I think even so, there's something to be said here, and I want to show this because I think it's interesting. And again, it's not so much to really focus on the nuances or the details of what the technology is here, but more so I want to highlight something interesting that's new. And we talked about it a little bit, but I think it's pertinent for folks like this because this is something I think we could definitely bring people along for the journey, right? So I want to show three, NFTs that are new, and what they're doing, is different. So this is one of them, and this is a project called Meta Angels, and it's an image, but there's more to it than the image, right? The image is just what we see. That's fine. But consider this to be, let's say, a membership and access to a thing, right? So think of like a digital, membership card of sorts. Most projects started off as like anything else, right? Like what did most websites start off at? Remember, what was that one site that Napster, right? You're downloading pirating music, like what I mean, like all these things that were used to be done. Now, what I am saying is, imagine a world, fast forward Napster, fast forward MP3 downloads, and a world where you can download and stream music. Well, Heresy would say Tower Records. Heresy would say all the disc providers. Nobody buys discs anymore. Everything is streamed and it's online. It's Pandora and it's all these other services, right? So we never knew we'd be here the way we are. That being said and done, a lot of these projects that we may know now are not really the projects that will be here tomorrow, right? We may see pictures today, but it's almost like trying to explain Apple Music with the only thing being Napster. I'm like, first of all, what is this downloading and pirating of music? Well, in the future, you'll just stream music and that'll be part of the process. Well, that sounds like you're stealing stuff. In the future, that's not how it works. It'll be Apple Music and iPhone. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So I can't explain to you Apple Music unless you know what Apple is. And unless you have an iPhone conversation, then you don't know what that is. And if mobile devices don't exist, then, what I'm saying, it's just way ahead. So that's what's happening here. So this image here, for example, is from a project called Meta Angels. And what I like about it is the team is fully doxxed, and that's just NFT talk for saying that they're out there as who they are, right? They're not anonymous people. But one of the advisors in this project is actually the sister of Mark Zuckerberg. So Randy Zuckerberg actually is one of the advisors in this project. That's one. One of the things I find interesting here is, I heard, Brian, they have this concept of angels and guardian angels, and that's kind of the play for this project. But really, it's a bigger movement of helping and serving, right? So they've built a community, and the community has about 40,000 people or so. And in that community, they have something called a wishing well. And in the wishing well, you have the ability to put a wish or put something that you're dealing with and you need help with. or a service that you are providing and you can offer to others, right? And one person put in the wishing well that they were kind of out of a job and they were looking at you know uh, other things, right, for work. Well, Randy Zuckerberg hired him, like literally, like in this little crazy NFT space. Someone got a job. They explained who they were, what they have, and they were able to make a connection with someone who had the ability to employ them. And these things are happening at amazing levels and speeds. People are getting seed fund rounding for money to do things and all kinds of stuff. But you can't get into this world unless you can have one of these things, right? And some of these things, they may be out of somebody's price point, right? $200-300 per whatever the case may be. And again, that might not be a luxury for somebody to have. What I think is interesting about this project is they're one of the first projects to begin to enable a lending protocol. And a lending protocol means that I, for example, own this membership card, right? But I also have another one, right? So, and again, it's to make a point, right? I own this one and I own this one, right? And again, the art is subjective. You know what I'm saying? It's just I really like how they had it. There's different types of things that we could show you, but these are three of them right here, right? And I really want to showcase this because let's just say, for argument's sake, this is mine, and this is how I can access and authenticate myself as being part of the group. Great. In traditional sense, I would just own three of these things, and that would be all she wrote. And Brian could never be a part of this conversation because he didn't buy one. He doesn't own one. He's not a member, right? And doesn't get access to certain things that are behind membership walls. But with the lending protocol that they have in place, because their whole concept is empathy and supporting and serving, I can now say, you know what, Brian maybe, let's say, may not be in a place to buy one of these right now, but I can lend it to him. And the minute I lend him, right, this membership, right, which right now we're going to call NFT, now Brian, bloop, has the ability to access the wishing well and the things I just talked about. And maybe, just maybe, Brian is in there and learning the space and talking and sharing who he is. And someone says, you know what, I could use someone with your skills, and Brian finds a job or finds an investor or whatever. You don't know who you meet, but this exclusive, community of people doing things differently, I can lend that to him. And because of that protocol, I can then say, you know what, this one's for Rick Cook, and he can come in. And the lending protocol lets me lend to you all my assets, so you have access to the things I have access to. And then when I choose, when the time comes to revoke that access, I can do so. Which gives you the ability, which I think it's amazing, of saying, hey, I can tell you all day these things are amazing and great, but you're not going to know unless you try it, right? You can tell somebody about Friday Night Live until you actually say, well, why should I see it live? I'm like, because you can pretty much ask them something and they'll pivot and answer your question or do whatever, right? So live versus replay is a big thing. So the ability for me to give my membership to Brian and have him come in, I think it's amazing because it starts to showcase like, hey, why don't you give it a trial, see what it looks like, come into the community, right? Exchange information, because it's easy to say, well, buy something and come be a member. Well, some people can't, right? But because I have three, I can lend two, right? So these are the things that I think are interesting to be able to kind of look at even the evolution now of coming to a place where maybe, again, I lend this to Brian, but now he's able to get himself in a place where, yeah, he wants to actually be here and get his own membership. And when he does, I'll take my membership back and he now has his own. And I can go ahead and pay it forward to somebody else who may need that. And now we start to actually create an economy, a situation where we can bring others in without having to put the financial strain or burden of having to, just buy something speculative or whatever the case may be, right? Because really more about the community and the benefits that are available. I think that's what's interesting. So that's an example of some of the things that you'd have no clue or know about any of that stuff unless you were in the space, right? Let alone understanding technology, let alone understanding new protocols, let alone even knowing that. Like that project just went live today, right? And I was pretty much in the pre-sale environment.
And that's an exciting evolution of the technology. No, I mean, it's exciting for maybe I'm a little bit of a tech geek in certain respects, but coming from a way back when in the software development days, but that is just part of the evolution. That's early days, but it's groundbreaking now. It won't be groundbreaking in the next month or two.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you who took it back is Rick. He said
Oh, there
Atari,
you go.
Pong, Radio Shack. Goodness gracious, Radio Shack.
Talking about
Yeah, in television, Mattel, what? Game consoles, all actually Atari just came out with a thing, which is funny because I was looking at one of their projects too. So Atari actually is in the mix, which is crazy because I was literally just looking at that the other day.
retro was in.
Yep, retro is in, so that's actually pretty crazy. But that's one of the projects I was looking at the other day. Mark said you forgot Commodore 64. And Rick said, yes, I did. Getting old sucks. And then Nathan said, I had Commodore Vic 20, 64, then 64 Charlie. Duke Nukem, right?
There you go.
Now, but not even to that conversation, right? Like we talked yesterday with Def Clutch, and they're doing like a throwback to some different concepts, like Fallout and so forth, and they're creating these new technologies, these new games. But what's interesting is imagine if you owned a character in Duke Nukem, in the height of Duke Nukem, right? So what becomes tomorrow's major things in this new space? It's almost like there's seed round grass community funding that happens by virtue of getting in line with certain projects, and you're able to have some ownership as well, some fractional ownership. I own a concept project in that, so like I showed, for example, some of the NFTs I have. Let's say tomorrow that becomes a series, that becomes a game, that becomes a thing, and one of the characters that I own is a part of that. Right, so there's a whole bunch of ways that this whole thing, it just will blow your mind when you start thinking about the possibilities. But we can just have this conversation, which is my whole thing. Like, when do we have these conversations? Not someone trying to sell you something, because again, that's what happens. You can Google something, and if someone's saying, "Well, buy my course, and I'll teach you," there's no buy a course being for 2 hours talking about this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that we need to have to hopefully create conversations and take people with us, because we're gonna do it anyway. But it's also good for others, to have the option to be able to speak about that. And furthermore, look at Nathan, right? How did Nathan come into the mix? Right, he saw some stuff we were doing here, let's say on this side of the house, and now in turn he's having a conversation here with Rick, but Rick met us through benefits. So even in the chat, that's the whole the thing we're talking about is playing itself out, right? And that, to me, I think it's what's great about what we can do, right? It's literally a conversation where you have Mark saying, worldwide what, right? Rick hits you with Atari and Punk. Mark hits you with the fact that you forgot Commodore. Nathan comes in and says, I had Commodore. But these are all three individuals that came to us from different places that are all able to have a conversation with each other here as veterans spanned across the country and different places and share. You know what I'm saying? Heck, LB is in the Philippines. You know what I mean? Shout out to our brother Glenn, who's, popping in, always supporting. You know what I mean? But you have folks here from all over the place that are tuning in. Shout out to you, Derek, for hanging out with us as well. Navy 83 to 90. Bill in the house 85 to 2006. Thank you for being here with us. U.S. Army retired 100%. LB, again, like I said earlier, 87 to 92. U.S. Army, all the way from Manila in the Philippines. Right? Wow. And that's the whole thing. Like, we're having these conversations, and there's folks from all over the place. So these are the type of things that I think are cool, because we can leverage at least the different technologies that we have. And, it doesn't matter where you're at. We can have these conversations and meet new folks and do new things and, learn a thing or two. So I think that's pretty cool to be able to actually see it kind of come together. Mark's all the way coming from Florida. So literally you have Florida, you have, Arkansas, you have the Philippines, you have Oklahoma. It's crazy. But I think it's interesting for sure. But hopefully, Austin, that kind of gives you some context that really, we can deep dive into the nuances of things. But it's almost like saying, well, you cannot buy an iPhone until you understand internet protocols and how applications are built on Apple software. No, you buy an iPhone, you take it out the daggone thing, and you can go ahead and do that, and use that. So those are some things there that I would say is where new spaces are going. So I'm excited to be able to see where that goes and how that grows and how we can share, and be able to go that. Brian, so actually a good question for you is, so you kind of I wouldn't say reluctantly or hesitantly, you've been dragged into the space whether you like that or not by virtue of being here. But you have come into the space, and again, right, 26 years to get service connected. What I mean, been out of service for a little bit. Obviously, a lot of the stuff, even though you have a tech background, at first it's bleep bloop bleep bloop blop bleep bloop. I don't get it. Talk a little bit about your journey as a whole, because sometimes I think it's also good to do like, hey, I can sit here and break something down. I'm like, all right, that's good, guy. Thanks, you can get this stuff. Not saying you don't, but kind of coming into it recently, right? This is not something that was maybe on your radar. Like, probably you heard about it, crypto from a distance and stuff. But can you share a little bit about your journey into crypto, which eventually led itself into NFTs, because it kind of builds off each other from someone that kind of saw it from a distance and now is coming into it full blown.
Hey, and this is just a story of me jumping on the DP train, right? We're woohoo, we're starting with crypto, right? And so DP helped me get into the crypto space a year ago, and to me that was a strange, a strange concept. It's crypto, you're thinking, what is up with, whenever I think crypto, I think of the old, and this is a term that even is used a lot in the NFT space, but fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You'll hear FUD a lot. So I had FUD even about cryptocurrency, crypto assets, because whenever I first started hearing about them, and I heard about it before I really got into it a year ago, but I'd never really wanted to even touch it, because you heard it's all about money launderers. You use it to hire assassins, all this nefarious uses of crypto assets. And so, you're thinking, okay, this is never going to be a legitimate thing. And fast forward to a year ago, and the crypto is the basis in which the NFT transactions are made. So it was just it's a natural evolution in how what's building on top of the crypto assets, the cryptocurrency.
It just dawned on me. You know what's funny?
What's that?
Because Austin just actually said it to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, and this is literally so you guys can see how half of this stuff happens. It's the completely literally happenstance. So, but when it comes to this concept of NFTs and application, a real world example, because Austin did say that, so that's actually what kind of had me thinking, like, wait a minute, what examples did I give? Like, we do it so much we don't think about it. I have to get to the Inception one, but it's like Monopoly. It's like a Monopoly game.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking crypto, we're talking the game of Monopoly, right? In a sense that crypto is just looking at what does everybody get, right? 200 for you, to like the currency, right? That's what crypto is, right? The currency. But what do you do with the currency? Like, we're all standing around this table holding funny money with no use but the fact that you have a stack of $1,000, because the rules say, okay, so 5 players, everybody's going to get, okay, you got some green money, some blue money, okay, and it all adds up to a thing. Got it, check, got it. But now with the advent of the technology being built on top of that, the use cases, that becomes the board, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look at the blockchain, it's like literally the Monopoly playing board. And the question then becomes, what can you put on top of that board, right? Park Avenue, electrical, railroad, jail, all the things that happen on top of that. What does that layout look like? So the blockchain becomes almost like the playing board that you play on, and then people begin to create stuff like, well, let's add 4 railroad stations, let's add some rules that get you this, some jail, the ability to build houses, the ability to build, hotels. So all that stuff that creatively creates the game. In this instance, they've created Monopoly. Over there, it's Parcheesi. Over there, it's another game. So regardless of what your preference is, it's almost like the board game itself is the foundation of what goes on top of that. So most games, right, they operate off of currency. Using Monopoly, just to be simple, right? Again, this is just me making it up on the spot. But you have some Bitcoin, you have some Ethereum, you have some what someone told you about. What do you do with it? I don't know. Well, what do you do with Monopoly money? Well, absent the board and the pieces, you just hold it in your hand and wait for someone to come with the board. But the fact is, come. The fact is, you have the ability to. My service dog is looking at me like, wait a second, what's going on here? You have the ability to now build on top of that. So some people are building, and we're kind of with them for the ride. But now you have the advent of different technologies, NFTs, different projects. Those things become what goes on the board. And before you know it, we begin to start playing. And now you roll a dice, and it's like, wait a second. When I got here, there was no dice to roll. Someone built the dice, right? Well, we had no little figures to be. Well, now we have figures. Because remember, again, nothing is inherently new, right?
Yeah.
Like, I really want to see Brian's face when I say this. But think about it for a second, right? I want you all to consider this. This is, again, just an image, right? It's an NFT. If I'm proposing that this is almost synonymous like a game of, Monopoly, when we play Monopoly, what do? You pick the car, you pick the shoe, you pick the top hat. We're all an avatar in the game, aren't we?
Oh,
So, aren't we digitally doing the same exact thing?
it's exactly
In the
same.
metaverse, this is my avatar, right? This is who I choose to represent myself in. On the next go around, I may choose to be the horse. I may choose to be the car. Like, you know what I'm saying? All board games have that. Like, but nobody sits there and says, this is stupid. Why would I want to be the damn top hat or the car or the this? Like, but we all do it religiously. Like, everybody knows the go-to. Like, hey, nobody touch the car. That's always me. DP will always be the car, right? Brian will always be the top hat. We play these games, but we don't realize that it's literally like the same thing happening on a whole nother level. But, or people, why do you need to have this stupid little avatar, the picture? What is that about? As dumb as your top hat is in Monopoly. The difference is though that this Monopoly has money that turns into real money. So
Yep.
it's again, I'm obviously simplifying it to epic proportions, but I'm saying that the evolution of how you play a game. What do? You take out all the pieces, you dole out all the money, you set up the table, you begin to put things in place, and eventually as you play, you begin to build and create, and before you know it, you're full blown playing the game. But in this game, it's one that continues. So that's where we're at, right? We know cryptocurrencies, but now it's like, okay, what do you do with them? Well, the application of those currencies become now, right? The different projects, the different things that are happening, the different connections that are happening. To Nathan's point, the networking, right? Because that's really what it is. You have the ability to start networking and creating and doing things that have an impact in the real world. And because of that, what I was saying about the Inception thing is, that in this space, why I said mental health is huge, is in this space, everything is amplified at epic proportions. If you've ever seen Inception with Leo DiCaprio, it's, this concept of a dream within a dream within a dream, right? And we all know it, right? When you have a dream, you may feel like this thing's going on for a period of time, and you probably just could have been dozed off for 20 minutes. But in this dream, a whole week went by of activities, right? Because the speed at which your mind is going. So in the movie Inception, right, you go into a dream, things are multiplied. And then within the dream, there's another dream. Concept being you can implant an inception of a dream, deep down in the subconscious. I've made the example to say that if the real world, subjectively speaking, right, is the stock market, that first level of the dream world becomes crypto, where everything is amplified and happens faster. Both the gains and the crashes are acting at crazy speeds. Like you could literally be tipped over while you're sleeping, and it feels like in the dream world, like you're falling down and chaos is happening. When in reality, somebody just bumped you while you were asleep, right? Everything's magnified. But if you go deeper a level in like the movie, then you enter now into NFTs. So the average rate of return on most places, you'd be lucky to get 1% from your bank. Then maybe the stock market on a good turn gives you maybe 10 to 20 if you're lucky, right, of your return on your investment. In crypto, people scoff at you. It was like 20%, 10%. People are doubling, tripling, quadrupling, 10xing their money. In the real world, if you invest into Tesla and by next month you had 10x your money, you probably would move into something else and take profits. In the crypto world, someone buys Bitcoin at 10,000, now it's 50,000. Like, wait, what? Like, it's magnified. But then you enter now to the world of NFTs and speculation and the Wild Wild West and new stuff, and you got people buying assets that, again, I'm not saying it is right or wrong, but I'm saying that the reality is that maybe for someone, right, what is the inherent value of this, right? What if I told you that part of this membership of this asset, right, this thing here, such a tip, bloop, bloop, is access to Randy Zuckerberg, to Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Cuban, and all the other socialites and rich people you could think of are all part of this inner circle that people own this stuff. What would that membership cost? Right? A country club where all the elites gather. What would that cost? Right? So again, we know these things, right? Like, well, I would never join that club. The club I go to right here, okay, well, Equinox is much more expensive than Bally's, than Planet Fitness. Like, you're gonna get what you pay for. So my point is, you're more likely to bump into, Jennifer Lopez at Equinox in New York City than at a Planet Fitness. But the fees are different to get into either one or the other. So I'm, again, making examples here. But my point is, someone, right, as this community is being built up, what we don't know is who's brought into it. I said Mark Zuckerberg's sister as an advisor. People may come and flock to this community, into this group, into this project, into this company, and now we become part of that company by virtue of our ownership, which you may see as an image, but really it's more than that.
Yep.
I have ownership of it. And now in turn, people who are in here, people will die to get into this club because of who was in there and the access and the network was happening. So in that world, I would argue, that's where you start to see some of these wild swings in prices of, what do you mean you paid $300 for something and now it's worth $20,000? Happens all the time, right? And some of these shows we'll be doing, I'll show it to you live, like literally. You know what I mean? I'll show you live buying something and literally like, all right, it's a few days later and now it's worth this much. You know what I'm saying? Like, not financial advice. It's just saying this is what's happening. No different than the stock market in the early days. If if you weren't in it, people were making crazy stuff because, again, it was just a wild, wild west, right? It was just a whole lot of newness and all these things. And eventually more people come, things kind of settle down and things kind of calm down. So that's what's kind of happening, right? Regulation comes, all good stuff, but things kind of settle down. So, it's like a gold rush. If me and Brian can get to a gold rush
That's exactly
in the
what this is.
beginning, it's like, trust me, there's going to be enough gold for everybody, but you cannot deny that when you're the first to market, you almost like are sitting there with two shovels and picks and, blah, blah, blah. But there's something else happening here, right? Because maybe Rick says, that's fine, but that's a young man's game, man. I can't be sitting here, trying to shovel out gold. Arguably, the people that made the most money in the gold rush were the people selling shovels. Mm-hmm. Right? It's that old man over in the barn saying, I got shovels for sale.
Because even in that gold rush, you had a lot of people who struck it and you had a lot of people who didn't, right? Mm-hmm. NFTs can be just as dangerous, where you have NFTs that people are dreaming will happen to them, like the punks, where you get a free NFT and how many months later it's worth hundreds and millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars.
And there are examples that don't make sense. No one here would be mad if I told you I actually have 20 stocks in Facebook from day one and I didn't pay anything. Well, that's not fair. I went to college with Mark. We were roommates. He ran an idea by me and he gave me 20 stocks. Fast forward, that today is worth $2 billion.
Yep.
Right? So to Brian's point, there are projects and things out there that's like people use as an example, but it's like, again, I don't know that, Mark Cuban, when he created his things, was right next to Brian and they just happened to have been, bunk mates here at boot camp or cubicle mates at this company when the idea hit him to do a thing. Like, you don't know. Again, I'm making crazy examples here because that's not true, but you don't know the rationale behind things, right? I've been in crypto since 2017. I heard and saw things that made no sense. Today, I think back like, yep, I remember when they talked about that. I remember crypto kitties. I remember this. I remember that. It just didn't make sense. And I'm honestly, a lot of things just did not make sense. And it's almost like part of my strategy is, I'm in things that make sense. And I'm also, to a good degree, in things that make no sense to me. Just because of my exposure, right? I limit my exposure to say, okay, there are some things that, like this was a fail. But the only way to, kind of start encroaching into things, you take calculated risks, right? You're not investing more than you can, afford to lose. So regardless of what you all do, whether you do with us or not, doesn't matter. Like anything else, this might be tempting, right? Life may be like, wow, that'd be amazing if I can do this and that. It's like anything else, right? I'll show you my wins, but I'll also show you my losses because that has to be part of the conversation. And all, said and done, the wins outweigh the losses, but there's a rationale behind that. because people always want to say, "Oh, look, this thing worked out great." Show me your failures.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna have 9 failures and 1 success, but that 1 success can more than
Hmm.
surpass the failures of those 9. So just know that they're not NFTs being as early as they are. You still have a lot of scammers out there. You have a lot of things that just well intentioned, things starting off really strong and then they just peter out for whatever reason. It
Hmm.
could be that fear, uncertainty. It could be just pure emotion that tanks a project, and everything else that were legitimate and strong. But
Hmm.
if you're being cautious, making sure that you're not playing, I guess, or if you're not investing money that you're not willing to lose, um, don't be one of those casualties that puts the money that they had set back for their wedding and loses it because the one hope for basically they bought a scratch off with an in the form of an NFT, and that NFT didn't go where they thought it was going to go, and whoop.
Hmm.
So there's some incredible successes, but there's a lot of failures. There's more failures out there, but the successes can more than surpass the failures. It's just you have to be diligent. You have to do a lot of. You need to do your research, and this is where I tell you what. I love hanging with DP and the crew because DP, we got basically Southern Heat, and uh, we've got that guy,
Our robot
Rodimus.
friend.
Uh, yeah, so there's a crew of us that kind of explore, and I'm more of a tagger along than not, but it's exciting.
But but but
And
but speak on that for a second, right? Because I think that's what I really want also people to know. And I'm literally going to show you all something here because I think it's pertinent to the conversation, right? Um, so this is again because people always talk crap, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'll give it to you exactly how it is, right? So I want to show you something, and this is and a good part of this is what we're doing is I don't want to bring anyone along for a ride that I don't go down myself, right? So the things we're doing, the question is like, well, have we opened a Discord or are we doing something? I'm of the mindset that if you're, I mean, it's almost like I don't want to be that person that says I can give you a program that can make you hundreds and thousands of dollars if you buy my course. I've always said, if you can really do that, then why don't you go do that thing and not do this thing of selling it to me? Right? Like, it's always been one of those things of like, if you can do all these things you say, why don't you just do them yourself? Right? So it's kind of that concept of, oh, I do this myself. Right? But now working on how we deliver it, refining the process, how we start to do what we do, eventually as others come in, it's like, oh, you guys have a full system and process, but it's based off, our experience, but not with the whole concept of, oh, this is great, let's monetize this. Trust me. Again, this is something I think is worth showcasing here. Um, Brian, you'll know what this is here. Let me switch over. Um,
And I
okay.
just wanted to qualify
Hmm.
when I said I'm going to tag her along, it's not because I'm not participating. It's I'm learning. I'm catching up to where DP and the other guys are. It's just exciting to be involved, and it's a learning process.
Hmm.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah.
Right. So this is a project, and this is about half what it was. So this ebbs and flows and all that, but um, I just want to show this case, right? So this is a new project that's out. I'm in this project, and I'll show you right now where things are at. But I want to quantify it by showing a few things, right? So because I want to, literally show y'all exactly what this is. So there's no like, oh, you said a thing, but how, right? So let's break it down. This is the floor price to this asset, right? And there's things that come with it. We're not going to go into all those details, but 4.4, right? So 4.4 is the floor. That means that's the cheapest asset that you can buy here in Ethereum. So if I come to this converter, I'm saying that 4.4 is the equivalent of $12,000, right? So that's pretty easy to see. That's what 4.4 equals to check. And there's retracements and things kind of go up and down. So you see the ebbs and flows. You've seen these things, right? So as of like a few days ago, realistically, it was as high as like 9, right? So again, just to kind of put things in perspective, right? 9 puts us at 26, right? So just as an example, we're looking at this thing went live on the 18th, and I'm saying that on the 31st, not even 15 days later, this is the average of where it was at. So let's just call it 9. So in 15 days, this one of these assets was worth 9. Now what I want to show you is in those 15 days, it went to, let's just call it 26. Let's say it got to that point, you chose to sell it. Again, there's bigger conversations of where it can really go, but that's not the point. Let's just call it 26, but let's just say right now today. Well, DP, that's subjective, right? I didn't sell it then. What if I did it now? It's $12,000, right? So 12,000 or 26,000. Pick one. Let's go back here, and I will show you exactly my asset. So this is mine. And I'll show you on the blockchain. These are offers. I'm not selling anything. But I'll show you on the blockchain 23 days ago, right? So I'm telling you right now that by today's standard, right? If I would say at the height, it could have gone for 26, or right now it can go for 12 grand, right? And again, this is a few days ago. So I am telling you all that, again, this is how much that asset went for in that time. So on the day of the transaction, 0.2 was worth 616, right? Ebbs and flows today. Ethereum is up and down. It's worth 599, right? So let's just let's go ahead and cut it in the middle, and let's just say that asset was worth $600, and that $600 asset is worth 12,000 if I sold it today, or it could have easily been 26,000 had I sold it then. And even not selling it, someone is making me an offer for 8,000. If I choose to accept it, I can. I'm not logged in, so it shows obviously that I'm looking at this from the outside. Had I been logged in, it would have the option to accept the offer, but I'm not doing so. And these are offers coming all the time. But this is just one example, one unicorn. These are not things that happen all the time. This is obviously one of the rarities that doesn't happen all the time. But I'm telling you that the reality is that in a matter of days, right? What are we looking at here? 600. I said what was the height that I said potentially?
26.
26, right? So let's just say that's a 43x. 43x. In 23 days, $600 potentially was able to be converted into 26. That's 43 times your increase, 43x. So when I said something like, people scoff at a 10% gain, I'm talking about a 43,000% gain. Because if 100 is a flip, I'm talking about 43,000. Again, in layman's term, $600, potentially 30. And that's not counting other things, which again, if we go down to the big kahunas, which again, someone, again, this is the extreme examples. You can't use this as a benchmark, but this is by far the moonshot of a unicorn. Yeah. Like it or hate it, this club is frequented by the likes of Eminem, Rihanna, all these famous, like again, all the people who I've named before all have one. You hear the news, this person bought the Nape. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. Why do people buy Bugattis? It's, that's not the point. My point is that someone today has the ability to sell that asset for 92 Ethereums. And 92 is the equivalent of $270,000. And I am telling you that, again, not all are like this, but if you don't know, you don't know. But this little bad boy right here, I'll pick any of them, doesn't matter. And I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. 9 months ago, someone, right? There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so there's 5 of these. Let's say 1.6. All right. So this person here bought one, two, three, four. Actually, there's a few of them because there's more actually. This one might not be a good example.
Yeah, that's more of a whale.
Yeah, they bought a few, but I want to say that if we look at any, so I'm looking at transactions. So some people, bought multiple ones, and that's fine, right? So let's say one of these is 0.08, which is what the number was. So I'm saying that this is the value of the thing today, and 9 months ago somebody paid the equivalent of $230. $230 potentially now is worth what I just showed you, which is 92. And again, it's what's happening. Whether or not you like it or not is irrelevant. It's the facts. And again, it's not just me saying things here, like, oh, nobody's going to pay for that. Let's look at activity. And I'll show you. 3 hours ago, someone paid $669,000. 3 hours ago, $380,000. 4 hours ago, $368,000. 10 hours ago, 14 hours ago, 16 hours ago. Like, I can keep, like literally $407,000 a day ago. Right? I'll give it to you in your own lexicon of the conversation. Like this, it's literally 5 days ago, 3 days. It just keeps going. Look at this one, 250 ETH, which is the equivalent of $737,000 5 days ago. 5 days ago, someone bought this. Now, granted, right? There's along the ways like the market usually goes, right? There's multiple owners, but in this case here. Oh yeah, this is this is a good one. This is a good one. This person bought this. Again, same situation, right? For 0.08, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you take 0.4 and you divide it by 5, 0.08, right? So the same numbers I said. So $230, they bought 5 of them, right? Unbeknownst to this person, who at the time spent a whopping 11. What did they pay? What is the value on the day of? $1,100, right? That's what they paid for 4 of these bad boys. And I am telling you that literally, because of that, today you have an instance where that person 5 days ago sold that, right? You paid $300, and 5 days ago that person sold it for $736,000.
That's just
that.
one.
So that person held it. It's like, because sometimes what I was going to say was you may have instances where it was sold for one, for the other, and so on and so on and so on. Now this person held it and did not sell it, and now just sold it. But others, you may have a series of other transactions along the way. So here's an example, right? This person literally 9 months ago got that. They sold it, shortly thereafter for 5x. Then that person went ahead and sold it for 0.07. So let's follow along. So they bought it for 0.08, $236, right? Then they went ahead and sold it for 0.49. 0.49 is $1,400. It was a great day.
Yeah.
And then that person sold it, for a loss. Things happen or whatever, right? 0.4. So this one sold it for 0.4, so he actually sold it at a loss. We don't do that, but $1,178. Then that person went ahead and held it and sold it for 0.7, right? 8 months ago. So 0.7 is $2,000. A great day. And then enter now, fast forward from 1.5, you get the drift. This person went ahead and bought it for 1.5, which is equivalent of $4,400. And then they sold it for 31. And 31 is the equivalent of 90,000. Again, a great day 5 months ago. And that person pretty much has held it till today. So that person 5 months ago paid 90 grand and today has the ability to sell this for even an offer right now sitting there for him of 230, which is still below the actual, numbers that are at the 90 range, which is again $280,000 and change. Examples. My point is, all that can be a headache. It can be complicated. That makes no sense to me. I'm not saying it needs to. What I'm saying is, what if you had the ability to be around people who that does make sense to? Because as you can see, obviously, I must have done this a few times if I can sit here and navigate that very quickly. Most folks will be like, wait a second, what website is that? How do you buy it? How do you buy it? Where do you put it? How do you store it? How do you, right? So my point is, like, you want to be around people, one, that you can trust, and people who know what they're doing. Not saying they're gurus, not saying follow my lead because I know all things. No, it's just saying that align yourself with people who know what they're talking about and actually do this. I just showed you one of my transactions, right? Not this nebulous, oh, I know a thing and buy a course and all. No, literally, I can sell my thing and make. I don't need to sell you a $99 course. I mean, that's not what the game here is. But this is what we talk about when it comes to educating people. Because the reality is that if tomorrow all this stuff is simplified and made simple, you'll be able to look back and be like, you know what, this thing was more complicated way back when, but we belonged to a group and we were part of it. And we took a journey and we tried things and we tested things. And now it's all, standardized and is regular. It's not as big a deal. But back in the day, woof, people were flipping in under 12 months what people who have worked 20 years for. Right, because and Brian, I want you to really just kind of not in techie talk, but just as a regular person, consider the fact how do you compute that? The fact that you could have started a job at a regular company, and every paycheck you're going to put $200 into your TSP or 401k, and after 20 years, you'll maybe make something of yourself. And I am telling you that a kid, right, or a techie person, I don't want to be condescending, but I'm saying that what you worked, right? What did your TSP look like? What did your 401k look like? Maybe you over aggressively put. The point is, if you, let's say, did 20 years of work and you have a $1 million policy, $2 million policy, that's you had a good 401k or whatever. I'm saying in 9 months, someone did what you could probably not do in 20 years.
Yeah, not do in 20 years. Yeah, I mean the possibilities are incredible, and it's a building process. So if you start off with, if somebody is able to, and this is actually one of the tactics that some people use. Maybe I can only buy a $200 NFT, and I'm able to sell that for maybe double. So, $400. Well, that's just enabled me to maybe buy into the next project, and so that building process is one approach. But again, sometimes you just don't know which project's going to light off. And it's incredible to see that happen. I've had the good fortune of having one just kind of drop in my lap, and that's another thing on these projects where because you're in a project, and when we say project, when you hold a particular NFT, sometimes those people who own or running that NFT will actually give you free ones, or
we had that. We had that happen 2 days ago. People that were watching, one of the creators we brought on offered them a free NFT.
Yeah.
And again, like even down to even Bitcoin, right? When this whole thing started, they were giving it away for free because, like anything else, when you first start something, you need people to test the system. You need someone to believe to begin the process of you doing things. And it's that like anything that you start. And some projects just want someone to have utility. Some comments here that I think are worth highlighting. Let's see here. Nathan said, I hope to develop something in the NFT space that can change other people's lives. You talk life-changing money. I'd be so happy to make money to make off my back for those who have supported me in my creative process, in my mental health, or someone who's pulled me out of a bar when I had too many and maybe saved my career and so forth. And that's my whole thing, right? Like again, today Nathan is saying, hey, I'm thinking of a thing. I want to create something. But what if tomorrow Nathan pulls it off? I'm not saying that he can't. I'm just saying that you just don't know. Because remember, there was a geeky kid in a dorm room in Harvard called Mark, who we know as the founder of Facebook. You don't know what may be. So it's one of those things where, being in the space, being part of things, Nathan creates something, you're able to support him, you're able to be there, you get a free mint or you get something that's inexpensive and you kind of put it away in a drawer and save it, and maybe tomorrow you end up having literally, the artifacts of the Genesis 1 of what became an empire or something. You don't know. I'm telling you, you just don't know. And I think those are the relationships we want to be able to leverage and create things for. So it's almost like the disconnect in the spaces. Things happen so quickly that when you unplug, like Ready Player One, it's like, man, I wish the real world would speed up and catch up with what's possible. And that's a crazy place to be, because usually it's the dreamers and the thinkers, right, who want to take the advancement of the world forward. But with technology, it's almost like we can already see and think it, but the real world isn't ready yet, right? Like
Yeah.
literally half the stuff we've said, I'm sure went over somebody's head, and hopefully the examples make it easier for people to understand. But this is me talking like pre-K, right? I haven't even told you the name of this daggone NFT. What protocol does it run on, and all the in all the nuances of these things, and how the contracts are written. Like, but again, it's not. That's not the point. My point is, there's so much that it just being at least in the space. It's like one. It's like immersion, language immersion, right?
Yeah.
To Brian's point, no, he's not just stringing along. He's jumped in the pool. And guess what? At some point, you eventually start to pick up words and you pick up a trait. And I'm telling you, we were all in the military. There's nothing in the world that sucks more when you're in the military, right? When you're brand new, than running with someone faster than you. When you're when you're a B group, C group runner, and you're running with the fast ones, there is nothing worse than trying to keep up with the fast ones. Because I'm telling you, you feel like your lungs are on fire and you are dying and you want to just run with the slow kids. But you're never going to get better running with the slow kids. And the fact of the matter is, you hang out with, people going nowhere, you're going to go nowhere. You hang out with people moving someplace, you're going to have no choice but to move someplace, right? And, again, Brian may have came into this as, okay, we'll take a look at this your crypto thing, and fast forward, you're full-blown NFTing it up, and it's just like, okay, there's no way in heck I would have just Googled my way into this stuff. Because, again, it's one of those things where, we each learn something and teach someone, right? So part of how we're building this behind the scenes now, it's creating that no matter where you're at, everybody plays at different positions. People are monitoring different things, and full blown, we kind of have a whole system in place at this point, and a whole team looking at different things. So, right, somebody's monitoring this, someone's monitoring that, and we're all kind of doing our parts, right? And now the shows you've seen this week, if you look back at the YouTube channel, you're starting to see now projects, right? So now you're starting to see me bring in people who are creating things and want to be able to kind of give forward. Not official yet, but I'll tell you right now, we have literally, as crazy as this is, because of what we do, some projects, want to support us. And
Yes.
they're supporting us not with words, they're supporting us with money. Like literally, they're like, hey, because of what you guys are doing, we want to be able to support you guys, and we want to go ahead and donate this money to what you guys are doing with veterans, which in turn means now what we can do for veterans. Hey, guess what? We're going to put on these classes now, give these things. And then you sit there, you're like, but how is it that you guys may not be charging for this or that? I'm like I told you, there's different revenue streams. Not everything has to be, what people would think. Like, well, you can't get in here unless you know. Come on over. We'll find ways to do things, right? And I think that's what's amazing. It's being able to see that the work that we do is being recognized and being appreciated by others in different spaces. That gives us the ability to come back and say, hey, look, this is what we do with our veterans. And they're like, I like that. How can we support that? So the
And
things
it's
that we did
bringing
for
you all along with us.
exactly, and this creates services. We have medical providers that we're bringing into the fold. Maybe some veterans may not have the financial ability to pay for certain things. We can create a warrior fund, which is some things that we had back in the day, and this is able to be like scholarship fund money to be able to help veterans in situations like that. And again, I showed you all just one transaction. What you don't see is that collection is I own one of those things. But there's 10,000 of those things. So now think about that for a second, right? Because I need, in closing, right, as we start to wrap it up here, I need y'all to look at, that reality. I showed you all one project, right? This is obviously the extreme, but I'll take you back to the project that I showed. And again, these are, long shots, so it's not fair to just try to categorize everything based off one thing. But, let's just look at this, for example, right? So what do we have here? This project. And I'm saying that most people potentially paid somewhere in the vicinity of $600 for this stuff, right? So if I'm telling you that there's right over here, um, eight, 8,200 times 600, that's 4.9. So let's just call that $5 million that that company, generated by bringing a full blown. And can they have 3D renderings? Like it's a whole, thing. So it's not a cheap process, but they've turned the revenue. And every time things are traded, there's royalties and there's money. So there's a business aspect. I can literally explain to you how you can have a business enabled by these things. But my point is, there's a lot of money being transacted in some of these projects, no different than any other project. And when you have the ability to partner with these organizations, support these organizations, create these type of things, and they say, hey, we want to donate X amount, right? Because we like what you guys are doing over there. I never said that I had to go and charge you for that support or whatever. We generally do what we do, right? But now we operate in a place where this becomes almost like the new digital Silicon Valley, and they like what we're doing. We're good at what we do, and if they want to support what we're doing with other veterans, that's amazing, right? So that's what I think to me is interesting. It's that it won't make sense until you see it, right? And this almost becomes what in the space you'd call an alpha. It's like, hey, I'm trying to tell you something, and no one believes Babe Ruth when he's trying to call his shots. But when he smacks that ball out the park right where he told you it was going, it's like, oh snap, this guy starts to call his shots, right? So if we build it, they'll come. If we serve and do the things the right way, things will start happening. So I'm hopeful for what we're creating. I'm hopeful that we can create opportunities like this that give the opportunity to others to be put in front of the right people, make those connections, and be able to invest back to help to serve our veterans. So that's kind of some of the things that are going on in this space. It's a lot. So it's not a deviation or this. It's just another line of business. It's just another thing that we're doing. So there's a lot happening under the hood, is what as you can see, right? To do all these things. So there's different businesses that I'm running in parallel as we serve our veterans. And again, it's an aggressive undertaking because it's easy to say we're doing benefits, we're doing technology education, and we're doing business development. Well, that means that's three different businesses that need attention, right? So there's a
That's
business
why you got
component
that
for
oxygen tank, because you're just boosting
literally
yourself
just
so you
like,
can move on.
all right, now we're talking benefits. Wait a second. Now we're talking investment in crypto. Um, but it's a fun ride, and I'm excited to be able to start taking more folks with us as we kind of hone in and lean into this more. But those will be my closing thoughts. If you guys have questions, as always, definitely feel free to. You're welcome, Nathan, to put them in the comment section. We'll answer live or on the replay. Doesn't matter. But these are the things that we're doing. If you like some of this content and concepts, you can definitely share it with someone, send it to someone. Subscribe, like, hit the little bell button, because especially now since we're going live a little bit kind of unannounced, we're not necessarily So to be fair to you all, um, if we go live sporadically, you may not see an announcement for it, but it's not that we're not announcing it. It's we're announcing it somewhere else to that other demographic, right? So you may have seen, oh, we're doing Friday Night Live because you're on our mailing list, right? But we're not going to bombard our mailing list, right, with, hey, we're going to go live on Tuesday at 5 o'clock to talk about some, NFT stuff. Well, that's not necessarily what you came here for. So one channel may have different things. When you start looking back, like, wait a minute, when did that happen? Well, there was no email on it because that's not something that you necessarily came here for, right? So being respectful of everybody, we're not going to go tell NFT people, hey, we're talking claims today, come over here. Like, what does that have to do with me? So it's almost like a multi-platform type of channel of sorts, right? That gets broadcast in different places. But if you like what we are doing and you want to see more of this, then I would encourage you to follow the channel, hit the bell notification so that when we schedule something, because you'll see a scheduled events. When it's scheduled, it'll notify you, hey, we're going to go live on this day or that day, or, doing something. So that'll be the best way to find out what's going on.
Yeah. Subscribe, bring your friends along. That's how we're growing and supporting each other. So and I'm thankful for all of y'all being here and hanging out with us throughout the show. And there is just so much going on, and the possibilities for the veteran community as we go are going to be great. It just there's time. It takes time to develop, but as we continue to develop these things, it's exciting to see Nathan and what you're working on, and we know that that can be life changing. Um, and that's the kind of stuff that we like to see, and hopefully that we can help you and support you in knowledge and in other ways, networking. Let me tell you, there's making some pretty incredible connections as this journey progresses. Who would have thunk it that DP sitting on a Zoom face to face with Gary V? You know,
I'll tell you,
or
we spend too much time together because it's like almost like I have it queued up for you, but I never just had it up
from the hip.
from the hip. This is a meme contest that we had, and I just kind of put it out there. It's like, hey, the joke and pun obviously here being there are no military veterans in crypto or NFTs. Us, you sure about that? Are you sure about that? And obviously, this gentleman here is one of our business associates. He is a big influencer in the space. So Gary V, you do a Google search, the guy is a phenom in his own world. And to Ryan's point, right? How would that connection be in place, right? How did that happen? What brought about these different things? So I want to caveat on Brian's point, I want to share that with you all. But I'm also understanding that I want to be very careful how we share it, because there's a fine line between come join us for the ride and what I see as people just trying to flex what they're doing, right? Like, I don't like that. I don't like the, oh, look at me, I have a thing. That's never been our play. That's not who we are, not how we do things. And as new people come, I'm very sensitive to bringing people for the ride versus trying to just show people things so they can see us. And, you know what I mean? Like, we're all equals. But we have access to things that others can benefit from. I think that's what the real message here is. So
Yeah.
as events start happening, there's conferences and gatherings and things that we're partaking in, and bringing you all along for those rides and showing you all those things I think would be cool.
Absolutely. So great things, and just it's going to be fun. It's fun already with what we're exploring and how we're basically developing our senses, sharpening our senses, if you will, making connections, meeting new people in this space. It's being able to support veterans across the board and meeting people that are not maybe necessarily veterans, but being able to bring that into the equation and how we can facilitate that support to the veteran community is encouraging. And from somebody who spent 20 plus years in the IT business management space, and project management, I always, it was one of those things where, okay, that's nice. You're accomplishing a project, but once you leave, that's going to disappear in a short time because something else is going to come around. Whereas the kind of support that we've been able to provide, being able to change veterans' lives with the benefits, man, it's just incredible, and it's great that we can share that with you, and we hope that you'll share with us the stories as you're experiencing your ride along with us.
Yeah. So that's really all we have. If y'all have any alibi or questions, definitely feel free to pop them in there. But hopefully, like I said, just wanted to really take today to just kind of check in and hang out. So, sometimes it's a theme and there's an idea and there's a topic and there's a guest, and then sometimes we're just hanging. And, today we talked a little bit about everything. Like we said, we talked some claims, we gave some examples, we talked some NFTs. And again, these are all the things that, we just share. So, what we're doing now is obviously on Fridays we just kind of hang out. So, we'll let the clock run. There's no need to be kind of really rushing anything, but we'll put timestamps, in the videos as well. So when you kind of look back, you'll be able to kind of go to the area you want to go to. So that makes life easier to not have to be like, oh crap, where was it you guys talked about the NFT thing or the claims thing or whatever. So those are some things that we're adding as well. So you'll start seeing timestamps for previous lives. So let's say you send it to somebody and they don't care so much about the claim stuff, but their NFT is what they like, right? Because it's your son or your nephew. Well then, hey, here's the video. Go to the NFT section. You'll see it there, and they can kind of fast forward to it. So yeah, but I'm definitely excited for what's going on. Definitely, looking forward to having Amy with us on the next go around. So
Yes.
she'll be back at our regularly unscheduled sporadic showtime as we go. So definitely make sure you're again following the channel, have your alerts on, so you know when we schedule things. But those are my closing thoughts for that. Any closing thoughts on your side, Ryan?
No, just support your buddies, encourage those who need help, and be willing to learn something new. Just realize that even if you don't understand it right now, the just joining us in the journey, you'll start to pick up on what these things mean and how that
Mm-hmm.
applies to you.
Yeah, and we could definitely do that for sure. I would say, the quick, simple answer, it's Solana being one of the platforms that folks use. Solana is today what Ethereum was to me in 2018, 17, right? It was a nebulous concept with a lot of potential and promise, but yet not a lot of adoption and people really moving into it. So Solana, it's a great concept and idea, and I'm not saying it will take that long for it to come to fruition, but Ethereum has first movers advantage. The benefits that Solana brings from an efficiency, time, cost effectiveness, and all these other things are great. The problem is though that all the major players are, what I'm saying, on Ethereum. So Ethereum is the major leagues, right? We could talk all day about how great it is over here at this other league, but at the end of the day, it's like the XFL and the NFL. The NFL is the NFL. The end. You can't compete with that. So
Yeah. And
that's
it could be that Ethereum is the Netscape of,
correct. Right.
who knows?
Right. We don't know which way it'll go, but when they do implement some of the upgrades on the Ethereum platform, again, they're years out as is, but there are scaling issues. There's a lot of security concerns in Solana specifically. So, there's projects moving over, but what I will say is there are projects in technology that will become like recur. That's one thing we could talk about next time as well. It's going to be blockchain agnostic. So we talked about, for those seeing what he's asking, is Solana being a protocol, a platform like Ethereum. I showed you that this much means that much. In this space, the amount of currency is tied into also the platform. So it's one and two together. So Solana is another platform similar to Ethereum, much more better. Yep, same thing, Nathan. I've followed Gary Vee since the Wine Library, so that's how far back I go with that one. But yeah, there's a connection there with Gary Vee, which again is still crazy to me. But Solana has a lot of solutions, but then you also have Tesos, you have ADA, but ADA is not there yet. Cardano's not there yet. But Solana, I think, has potential. There's some good projects in there for sure. But the main movers that people want to get into, right, are in Ethereum right now. That being said and done, from a price point, if you look at where Solana is right now, and I'll bring it up here, right? So that's that's the technology play conversation there. But let's look at Sol. So Solana is right now at $97, right? I want to say I took a more aggressive position in Solana somewhere around May, June time. Yeah. So I took a position back around that time because I came in about 20 something dollars into Solana, right? And now it's at 96, right? That sounds impressive for most people. Again, you see the markets, how they go. I say that to say that this is, to me, the equivalent of where Ethereum was back then, right? So if I were to bring you up to Ethereum back in 1718, right? You're almost looking at Solana type numbers, right? So early 17, look at that. Ethereum was 40. Let me zoom in here so people can see a little bit better. Ethereum was right around 40 something, right? Then 90 something there. So about the time that I was kind of really, paying attention to crypto, that's kind of where Ethereum was, right? So I said to say the parallels when I say, hey, Solana today is where Ethereum was then. It's almost, you look at the price points, right? So let's just look at May of 2017, right? That's Solana, that's Ethereum, right? Fast forward today, Ethereum is way more expensive than that. So when you look at Ethereum now, it's at $2,900, $3,000. But make no mistake about it, it was there, right? So that is why I say when you look at Solana, Solana is almost very similar in price to what it was then, right? When you're looking at where it's hovering now into the 90s, I'm like, okay, again, back, a year from now, it was a year ago rather, or so it was like 20 something. You see where it's at now, so it kind of has that reminiscent kind of same pattern there. But funny enough, if you look at Bitcoin back in that same time frame, right? So let's go take Bitcoin to we said March of 2017 or so. You look at that, right? So it's almost like a ripple effect of sorts. Of at that point, Bitcoin was at the $1,000 range, and then kind of went close to like the 2,000 and change. So Bitcoin then is the price of Ethereum now, right? Obviously, Bitcoin right now is 42,000. So people can speculate and start looking at, okay, well, if Solana is what Ethereum's price was then, and Ethereum is right now where Bitcoin was then in 2017, and Bitcoin is here now, then the question becomes: fast forward 2-3 years, does Bitcoin quadruple, quintuple in price? Does Ethereum turn into 3,000 to 10, 20, 30,000? And does Solana then go from $90 to $3,000 as more people come in and so forth, right? So it's almost like looking at the whole factor of, Bitcoin was at that point in 17, Ethereum was lower. Now we fast forward, if Bitcoin is where it's at, Ethereum today is where Bitcoin was before, and if Solana is before where Ethereum is today, well, what happens going fast forward, right? So again, that's not technical analysis or anything like that. It's just looking at patterns and how things kind of look. But the adoption will be there. People are going to get tired of paying for certain things. But we could definitely take a deeper dive into looking at some of that. I think it's promising. I like it. I think that there's some good things they're going to do. But you're going to have that initial catalyst to really move people over, right? So let's say, for example, Bored Apes choose to mint their next drop or whatever partnership on Solana. That's going to be interesting, right? But is security there, the concern? Like, they just come out with some wallets now that are much better than the other wallets. So there's things that are, it's going to happen faster. And again, this could all be really rolling by September time, because again, everything just speeds up faster and faster. But I'm bullish on it. Like I said, I hold a position there, so I'm definitely, both on the crypto side, I'm invested into it, and then on the technology side, I'm interested in it. But I'm also in projects like Recur that are going to be agnostic to platforms, which means they can jump between Solana and Ethereum. So when I talk about platforms, this is the equivalent of me saying, well, this is MasterCard's technology, and this is Visa's technology, and that's Discover's technology, and that's American Express. They're all credit cards, but they're all inherently different from each other, right? Visa is Visa, MasterCard. Back in the day, what did the commercials used to say, right? Or like, accept MasterCard, accepted here. Visa, accepted here. That's no longer something you say, because everywhere you go, except Costco, right? They take, you know what I'm saying? You take everything for the most part, right? So as we've advanced, point of sale devices take all kinds of currency, right? Money's money. But why won't you take Discover? Well, they don't. They only take MasterCard. Well, why don't you take Solana? Well, we don't. We don't take Ethereum. You see what I'm saying? So the parallels are there, but what I would say is that in the future, right now, we're talking about, a Bitcoin wallet, Ethereum wallet, Solana. When you pull out your wallet, you got a Discover card, American Express card, you have a MasterCard card, and you have a Visa. Which card do you want to use? right? In the future, you will literally pull out whatever you want to use. Bitcoin for this, Ethereum for that, Solana for this. So that's what's exciting to me is the fact that literally it's when we get to the point where all these things are agnostic. It doesn't matter. Like which card do I want to use? My Visa card. It all really comes down to which has the balance that I need for it, right? Like crap, I already used the Discover card. I guess I'm gonna use the Amex card, right? But exciting times ahead. So this is more now talking crypto, right? We're talking strictly crypto, not NFTs. We're talking about just the currency aspect. So that's what I would definitely say for that. So we'll definitely dive into it. But those were just some of my, top of the head thoughts there for sure. I have a couple of quick question technicals so I can keep going in the right direction. So I'll be reaching out. Yeah, sure, man. Shoot a question. Like I said, not financial advice, but a few things we do know, and we don't know. At least it'll be something for you to be able to say, well, that's what this guy said, but probably that was wrong. But for sure. So hopefully that gave you a little something there, Glenn. At least until we kind of come back at it next time. But we'll be doing more of these things, so we'll label these events, accordingly. So, but inevitably, like you all see, right? We'll just go with the flow of what kind of comes. So, that's what I would say. In closing, right? Closing is, find a good group of people that can definitely at least answer your questions and be supportive as best they can. If we know the answer, we do. If we don't, we don't. But you'd be hard pressed to find someone that on the fly could do what we do. That's actually pretty impressive. Like if we stop for a second and literally look at the fact, like, okay, two guys just went live and you talked about VA claims, we pulled out the law, pulled out CFRs, we talked about NFTs, broke down projects, gave you a concept, we brought up crypto, we gave you analysis of what it was and what it is with no cliff notes, just complete, like, hey, let's go to the internet, let's go have a conversation, right? Because if you know your stuff, you know your stuff. And sadly, there's a lot of people online. Again, I don't care because those that are hanging with us. But what I think is cool about this is the fact that we can talk about these things. Because if we weren't talking to you all, we'd be talking to each other. So we're still going to be talking about these things. But the point is, again, not really selfless plug, but if you're going to find someone to potentially look for guidance or try to get stuff from, make sure they know what they know, right? Because the fact of the matter is, it hopefully comes across like we know what we know. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not just sitting here making things up like, I think that the blockchain. Like, let's just go to the thing. Pull up charts, pull up a thing. Here's what I own. Like, again, right? That's what I think is unique here. So, right. And for me, that's what I wish I had, right? I wish people would be more like that. Just, hey, give it to me straight, man. Just, what I mean? Show me what you got. Talk what, just, if you know your stuff, talk your talk. Stop trying to be all, fancy with it and all that crap. Like, yeah. So that's how we roll. So that's why we create content the way we create content. It's live, it's real, right? Sometimes the times to be scripted, and sometimes you just kind of go where people come and ask, right? So Glenn asked a question, boom, here, little crypto talk, right? So for some people, it's like, man, how do you guys know all this stuff? We've been around, we do this stuff. This is what we do full time, you know what I mean? So this is literally, what Veterans Network is about, is aligning, all these different skill sets into a place that people can find benefit from with the people that we have. So I hope that you all that hung with us, whether live or on the replay, found some value in what we're doing. And, we'll be back again. Turn on the notification bell and invite a friend, share it with someone if you found some value, right? We don't charge admission to hang out with us, but we do realize that it's by reaching more people that we can create and open more doors, right? Because even if you share this to somebody, they may be the ones that might be able to put us in contact with someone that creates benefits for everybody. So, it's definitely good stuff to happen for sure. But veteransnetwork.club is the website. Head over there, check us out. If you have questions, contact us there. Check out the services that we have. Check out the swag that we have. We're literally, rocking our own swag. So, this is made by a veteran organization, Cub as well. So all these things are actually made by veterans. Great product placement. You know what I'm saying? These organizations are here employing veterans. So all the swag that we have comes out of Michigan. So FG Apparel is one of the companies, veteran companies, that pretty much is enabling and empowering our swag shop. Right, so we support our own, and that's really what this is about, right? Being able to do that. So I don't own a swag shop; I have a swag shop, but it is powered and run by completely by FG Apparel. So shout out to them on the business to business side, right? So that's what a network does. We network with things. So
That's right.
that is all that I have, Brian. Any alibis on your side?
the last thing I'd say is, if there are topics that you'd like us to talk about, or whether it's on the benefit side, if there are topics that you'd like to see us to elaborate on, maybe create some ebooks or some other content. Same thing for the crypto and NFT. Again, go to the website, contact us, let us know. We'll be happy to use that information. That's helpful for us so that we know what kind of information you're looking for
Hmm.
as well.
Indubitably. So that is all we have for now. We have our co-host as well here, kind of in spirit and mind, kind of hanging out with us. Always got to look the wrong way. But we shall be back next time. Appreciate you all for hanging out with us, and there will definitely be more to follow.